Are you on some kind of speed
masses...
doing your mouth thing like somebody who's on speed?
I had a lisp when I was in school. This is the correction that I've made to my lisp. Spoken like this for my entire life. Do you have like a mental handicap, or do you just sound all the time when you make points? Then all you have to do, sir, is demonstrate I'm incorrect. It's so simple.
Because Hassan Piker believes a thing, I believe the opposite thing.
Then demonstrate how I'm incorrect. That's so easy. It's so easy. None of you guys are able to do this. Not a single one of you on this panel will be able to demonstrate a single point I've been incorrect on. Instead, you all engage in rhetoric and sophistry while accusing me of doing the same.
It just felt a bit silly.
Saying that it feels a bit silly, that's not an argument either. You haven't made a single argument.
A few of you have accused Destiny of being a sophist. Can you give a specific example of that for us, please? Not all at once.
Do you even know what my argument or position was on that?
Why don't you tell us?
No, you brought it up as an example for sophistry that I engage in, and now my counterexample is that this is you engaging in sophistry, so I'm not going to give you the answer.
Well, let me give you kind of like the rules of the road here. There's a lot of you, okay? So if I interject, it's for a couple reasons. Either you're all yelling over each other and no one can hear what anyone's saying, in which case I will interject and try to get a little order in the court, okay? The other reason I'll interject is if something's being said that I don't understand. And if I don't understand what you're saying, it's likely my audience doesn't understand either, so I will try to get clarification. Are there any questions before we begin?
Nope.
Great. Let's get right into it. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, have we got a show today for you? Recently, Destiny has been called out, right, by Hassan and a few others, and had a debate earlier today on the efficacy of debate. Does debating matter, right? How much stock should we put in to these online debates that we have, if any? Do they change minds? Do they influence policy? Or is it all just entertainment, right? Is it all just blood sports, just money, just grift? And we're going to be talking about that today, right? And I guess I'll just start, right? Just ask the question straight up. Do debates matter? Do debates influence people? What do we think? Go ahead.
Wait.
Not all at once, please.
I mean, I guess I'm giving the affirmative. So, yeah, I think that they matter. I think they convince people to change their mind on things. But, I mean, it's a small part of a huge political process. Like, debates aren't the be-all and end-all. There's plenty of different parts of a huge political machine that can make people change their minds. This might mean documentaries. It might mean video essays. It might mean protests. It might mean politicians. Like, there's just a lot of different parts to changing somebody's mind politically about a thing. And I think debates are a part of that.
Can you give me an example of one time when you feel that you have changed somebody's mind with your online debate?
I mean, I've gotten like, at this point, at least hundreds of emails of people saying like, oh, like I used to be a fan of XYZ person, but after listening to you have this conversation with them, I don't feel as strongly about this topic, or I don't follow this person anymore, or I've changed my mind on this issue. Give me like.
So you feel that your job as a debater is to expose people then?
That's a byproduct of what I do. I mean, the exposing would happen if they're really incorrect about something and can't defend the idea. Yeah. But that's not like.
Do you think you've ever been exposed?
Insofar as I've had a debate where I wasn't fully informed or I didn't have like the correct idea. Yeah.
Okay. Good. I mean, this is an open discussion, so please, like, I know we'll get warmed up. Come on, get more comfortable. Come on.
Well, I would like to say that online political debates are mostly done by streamers who typically aren't really experts in any sort of field that would require like political discussions, because politics is a very intricate subject to tackle, as well as many social issues. And I think it's not very good for audiences or viewers if what they're getting is information from people who are just laymen, just like themselves. Whereas I think there should be better. If we're going to do panels like this in certain spheres, we have to be very meticulous in who we allow to come on to debate these very complex issues. So that's one of my issues with it. Why it doesn't really matter ultimately, because it's mostly laymen talking to other laymen, and so we don't have many experts on here.
Well, that's my real problem with it. It's not just that I don't think it's particularly effective. It's that I sort of don't want it to be effective, because the people that engage in online discourse are not usually experts in the field. In fact, actually, they're largely fucking ignorant, loudmouth pricks who should really shut the fuck up about things they don't understand. Myself included, many occasions. The idea of people, and not just Destiny, but he is here, having a massive influence over political culture is slightly terrifying, given the slapdash way in which he approaches topics.
Oh, agreed.
Can you give us an example? Like, so in your opinions, then, it's not the fact that these debates are happening, it's the fact that we are letting just anyone on to debate that may or may know nothing about it. Is that an accurate kind of representation of your guys' point here?
Well, okay, as someone who did debate in college and high school, like it's highly moderated, and there's somebody that, understands logical fallacies and doesn't let people get away with gish gallops or coming up with straw man arguments. And that's not a thing that exists online. Like, what's the guardrails in order to protect against, fallacious arguments that may sound good and win people over, especially if they themselves aren't well versed in critical thinking. They can be won over by just horrendous arguments.
I think that's true, but I think there's a big difference between are debates effective? Do they change people's minds versus do people participate in debates in the best way? I think that there's definitely issues relating to how people do debates, but none of the topics brought up so far, none of this is unique to debates. Like, there are plenty of activist leaders that are wholly uneducated in a topic. There's politicians that make statements that are incredibly ignorant about particular social or economic issues. Like, lots of people, it's like philosophy. Like, you don't have to have formal training in philosophy to be practicing it constantly. People do it all the time. You're always making ethical judgments or deciding what's right or wrong or figuring out who you believe in a particular thing. So I agree that there are problems with debate, but that's not really an argument against debate. That might be an argument with the way that people engage with it. But whether you think people engage poorly or not, people are still doing it and people are still convinced by it. So you kind of are forced to engage with it.
Of course, people are engaging in philosophy when they talk about these type of issues. But then, of course, there comes the issue with what was your name again? Justin Freakin?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like what you mentioned about how when you watch actual scholars or academic types engage in debates, when they do it in moderated settings, they typically are pretty well versed in the areas they speak on. Whereas everyday people like us, all of us in here, when we're talking about these issues, we may not be as well versed in how philosophy necessarily works with epistemology, how our methods, because we all have different epistemic frameworks. We all understand knowledge and how we can understand issues differently. But when we do this sort of thing of changing minds in this area, a lot of the people who watch these type of streams are people who just kind of want to see their favorite streamer just kind of get one up on the other people on basically empty rhetoric games that may not be even well argued. So that's
sure, but again,
whether you change someone's mind.
But people don't watch
these. If you change someone's mind, oh, sorry, what?
I was saying, but people don't watch these. Usually they tend to be incredibly dry and sometimes over not the most contentious issues, which I think is a huge problem. So.
Well, that's an issue with people, I think. That's just
an
issue
on some
with
kind of
how
speed?
the masses are.
Destiny, you're doing your mouth thing like somebody who's on speed.
I had a lisp when I was in school. This is the correction that I've made to my lisp. I've spoken like this for my entire life.
Apologies, I'm not that familiar with you, to be honest with you.
No.
Anytime I see clips, it's really you getting owned.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you have a mental handicap, or do you just sound retarded all the time when you make points?
Good one,
with your
my
background
friend.
either. Yeah.
I
serious
condemn that.
political discourse has started then.
Yeah,
Okay.
clearly. Okay. It's all good. We accept
Okay.
all types here.
Oh,
So I guess. Oh, non-smoker, go ahead.
yeah. No, I figure I should probably say something instead of just sitting here. Okay, my perspective is, I work as a high school teacher, right? And I work in a facility where we deal with kids with mental health issues, right? So I'd say a decent amount of my job is involving both educating and persuading people. And I would say that my issue with online debates is that it doesn't really educate or persuade in an effective way, because we have to kind of dumb down the content to appeal to a bigger and bigger audience in order for it to be, worth our while, right? To be monetized and all that. And it becomes this weird contest of dunking on each other and trying to own someone where, it's not really very educational in that sense. And it's persuasive in a public shaming kind of way. It's you want to be on the winning side of the debate because you don't want to look stupid. And I don't think that that's a very effective way to present any kind of information. And, I see what you mean with the philosophy stuff. you know, like anybody can talk philosophy and all that, but we're talking about like sensitive contemporary political issues that really matter. And I think, you know, facts and being accurate with your information is actually really fucking important. You know, you don't want just anybody talking about that stuff in front of massive audiences. So yeah, I mean, I have a number of issues with it. That said, you know, debates can be fun and you can learn surface level shit from them. But if we're being honest here, I mean, like, if it's going to be something that has mass appeal with this kind of, you know, viewer base, like gamer type people who watch Twitch and shit like that, you know, it's more about like dunking on each other and that kind of thing.
That's true, but again, this isn't like this isn't a thing against debates. This is just like political discourse in general. Like people go, I mean, like Donald Trump is literally was our last president, and he's one of his most popular things is known for giving stupid nicknames to political opponents. So I mean, like I agree.
Well, we all agree that's a problem, right? Like that's like a major dumbing down of the discourse that we all indicate is like a huge issue, and you know.
Yeah, it's an issue, but the solution isn't to disengage from it. The solution is like to find ways to engage with it in a healthier, better way, rather than just saying like, oh, well, this thing is ineffective. It is effective. It's very effective. But then the next step should be, well, how do we engage with it in a responsible manner? Not like it's just bad.
But how effective long term is it? Because any person who can be rhetoricked into a position can just be rhetoricked by someone equally good or better out of that. I feel like a lot of the people you're converting, for want of a better phrase, are just listless individuals who don't really believe anything and just listen to whoever tells the most convincing bullshit story to them, and then they'll go on to be convinced by Joe Rogan the next week or whatever, you know.
I mean, your goal
does
is
it with the most charisma.
Yeah, your goal is to. I mean, your goal would be to be that person. If they have to follow somebody dumb, or if they have to follow somebody, rather you than somebody dumb, right? I mean, when you go to the ballot box and you vote, nobody cares what your epistemic justification is for voting on a particular presidential candidate. The only thing that matters is who you vote for.
My point isn't about epistemology or anything of the sort. It's that you're not really converting them.
I mean, there's going to be some people
your side of things, but they can equally, if they're that weak-willed that a fucking debate streamer is going to pull them to one side, then another debate streamer or another cultural figure more powerful than you can just equally pull them away from that, because they're not rooted in anything. It's just they're just being buffeted by the winds of culture.
I mean, it depends on how you convince people, I guess. If you make that type of argument, that's a really emotionally appealing argument, and you convince somebody that way, then yeah, I mean, somebody with a better emotional argument can take them away from you. But I mean, it depends on how you engage with them and how you argue against a particular thing. I would imagine is going to determine how people, you know, either stay with you or leave you in the future.
I agree with you, Destiny. But with that being the case, you asked, okay, if we don't engage with Trump and all the insane stuff he does, then how do we engage with it? I would say we try to be a little bit better than how people like that engage. So kind of avoid the memeing, the constant dunking. Like that's a way to engage with it that would go against that sort of grain. I mean, it's difficult because a lot of people enjoy that, but you can't really change the dynamic unless you at least try to do it.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think you should generally try to be better than the people you're criticizing. Yeah.
So
can we hear from Ancom? I haven't heard from him yet.
Yeah, sorry.
I promise he's a big boy. He can interject when he wants. But go ahead, Ancom.
I can. I do have. It's something I'm trying to work on, which is when I'm not interrupting people, but in a situation like this, interrupting people
just give us your
sometimes has to be. So my thought on this whole topic is, while I think I agree in the general case with Destiny that debates overall can be persuasive and can have an impact, I think the field in which we currently exist with the online debate is far less impactful. The question that I've been getting in the run-up to this debate is, comparing this to like a presidential debate, which is televised nationally, which millions of people watch and respond to the point where, they have opinion polling going on during the debate to see the up and down swing. In something like this, in an online debate where it's a panel of people or even just one-on-one, the viewership is incredibly small. Most people there are there to support their favorite or their favored debater, and very few people's opinions actually get changed. In those cases that do, as rare as I think they are, the amount of impact that has on the overall society and culture is effectively meaningless. it has some small impact, but I don't think it has any major form of moving the conversation on a national level or even a global level to one side or the other. So I don't think that what we're doing here is particularly useful if the goal even is to change political opinion, change minds. So that's why I don't think it's particularly helpful. It's entertaining, but it's entertaining sophistry in a way that we're not getting any closer to increasing our understanding of the issues in most cases, much less actually convincing people to change their mind on a particular topic.
I don't think that this isn't a criticism about debates. This is just a criticism about the size of the audience, right? Like if you've got a small audience, literally almost anything you do is going to be meaningless. If you do a donation drive for starving children with an audience size of 50, you're going to raise like $100. If you do it with a larger audience, you have a larger impact. This isn't really a critique of like debate in and of itself, just of like the audience size of a person that is doing debate.
Well, I thought we were just talking about online debate,
Well, we're talking
particular
about
in these type of fears.
That's the point, isn't it? There's a qualitative difference between different types of debate. I mean, Destiny, I think the clip that I think inspired this debate or this conversation was him responding to Hassan and comparing himself, in some respect anyway, to the founding fathers or the what do you call it? The papers. I forgot what it's fucking called.
The Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
Just that, like,
Federalist
our country has like a
Papers,
rich history of like debating stuff. Like that's
well, exactly. But there's a qualitative difference between learned people actively engaged in the foundation of a country and kids online who don't really understand the topic.
Yeah, but the question is
choosing an opinion and going with that based on.
Yeah, but there's two
scant.
Yeah, there's two super separate
research.
things being argued right now. So the question is like, is debate effective or is debate done with like any kind of intellectual rigor? Those are two separate questions. And it feels like to counter the is debate effective, a lot of people want to argue, well, a lot of people that debate are dickheads. And it's like, okay, sure. But the first point is it effective or not? If it's not effective, then at the end of the day, none of it really matters. If it is effective, which I think we all agree, effective in that it gets people to change their minds on things. And it seems
But is that the only way that anything can be effective? The Federalist Papers weren't just about changing, or the Founding Fathers and their political debates weren't so much about just changing minds. It was about actually setting down policy. So
no, the Federalist Papers were about changing minds.
Well, no, I'm not suggesting he wasn't a part of it, but I'm suggesting
no, that was the goal. That was the whole point. They were published they published in newspapers.
I'm not talking about just the Federalists, but I'm saying the Founding Fathers and the broader movement of founding the United States or anything like that. The engagement with actual politics, the engagement with actual legislation and things like that is much more about having either an intellectual basis or some sort of legal basis for doing something, whereas online debate is about trying to convince someone with better rhetoric. And so I think it's much more worthwhile and much more effective in a genuine long-term lasting way to have an intellectual debate in, say, a university campus, and that university campus provides a presidential advisor that then goes on to actually impact a political decision that gets made or a piece of legislation, than arguing about whether being called a cracker is a problem.
Yeah, I think the issue is that of what you described for politics, the latter is actually more important politically than the former. Like, you can have all of the intellectual rigor and all of the well-reasoned, rational stuff you want, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how many people you convince. So you can stick the smart, like, if we're talking just like factual levels of information that Hillary Clinton possesses versus Donald Trump, it's not even close. Hillary Clinton knows more about every single facet of government, domestic, and international policy than Donald Trump, but it doesn't matter. Donald Trump won the election. At the end of the day, politics is about the power that you have to express your political beliefs, and part of that is, or really all of that, is convincing people to follow you.
But he wasn't really the main factor in that.
It doesn't matter what we.
It doesn't echo chamber.
It doesn't matter.
A number of other people.
It doesn't matter what we say. Got him there. It wasn't intellectual rigor. It was rhetorical convincing. Regardless if we say the media or practices or whatever.
I'm saying there are different ways in which success in debate is measured, and I don't think it should just be about, oh, well, some people are temporarily convinced of my position.
Well, it's not just about that. So I guess I'll ask this to the debate deniers here, for lack of a better term. Is representation in media important?
It depends on
in
the
shows.
representation and what is being represented, I would say.
So representation like diversity. So making sure that the you have black people, you have LGBT people in media. Does that matter?
You're just trying to get one of the panel members to use a certain word. Is that
No,
what you're doing now?
I'm asking
Debating.
you why, if, right, representation matters in media. And if it does, which I think you all would agree that it does, then why? Why does it matter? Because, and I'll take you down the road, because media influences others. And media, right, can have an impact on how people view the world, for better or worse, right? You all mentioned the facts that they had people who have just sophistry or who just get dunks, and how that kind of influence is dangerous. But it sees the position that these things have an influence, small or large, right? And while one debate streamer, such as myself, might be small, when you have hundreds of debates happening online, right? You have hundreds of these types of shows, obviously it would have an influence. Is that not correct? Where am I wrong?
I don't think the
Why?
analogy
I mean, that is true.
I don't think the analogy is fair, because the purpose of representation in media or in any kind of a business isn't to necessarily convince people of anything or try to provide people of like some ideal that they're living up to. It's to succeed in the capitalist framework that we're in. So you want a diversity of opinion so that you can appeal to as many people as possible and get as many consumers, viewers as you can.
Or voters.
Also, let's be honest, having diversity in TV shows is really good for annoying people, especially white people who should be annoyed by that.
Okay, fair
I'm
enough.
just saying.
And to answer your question about representation of different people, of course, it's important for people who haven't been represented that widely in certain media outlets to actually let their voice be known. That's good. But what my issue is the effectiveness. Destiny was talking about how the effectiveness, as long as you have a larger people being influenced, that's all that matters. And then you said there's a lot of panel streams going on like this. But when I think about it like that, if there's a bunch of panel streams discussing stuff like this that are very serious issues, and you have multiple guests,
They could be panels. They could have one-on-ones. There's all different.
it can be very difficult. It can be very difficult for the people who watch this to kind of juggle all of these different perspectives from just so many different people who are ultimately just people like them who may not have an expertise in that. So I don't see that as necessarily a good thing.
Okay, fair enough. I take issue.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing, Wick, is essentially just the normal discussion you would have as a national discourse, which is fine, but that's not really debate. And if people want to have discussions,
hold on, what's the difference
in a pub over a fucking drink or something? That's one thing, and that has an impact in of itself. But that's not really debate as such, is it? Debate should mean something more than just two people talking. Otherwise, two crackheads at the bus stop shouting at each other is
at
also
the end of the day,
That can be very persuasive.
It's about persuasive, though, right? It's about being persuasive. And we look at debate as a tool for persuasion. And when I think about persuasion and when I think about what persuades people, obviously different people will be reached in different methods. But I think you would concede that there are ways, right? That there are people out there who watch these debates who are swayed one way or another, right? That's why that's why a lot of people would say that platforming someone like Nick Fuentes is dangerous, because there's a possibility that he will sway people to his beliefs, which are wrong, right? So again, we know that charismatic figures.
You're saying that Destiny platforming Nick Fuentes was a dangerous thing to have done?
It's always dangerous to have people on, but I think it's more dangerous not to. I think it's more dangerous not to, because I'll be real, there's a lot of people who say that they don't like debates because they know if they do come on debates and their ideas are tested and challenged, that they will be exposed for what they are. And this happens all the time.
Whoa. A lot of people that are engaging in those debates may not have ideas that are getting exposed, but just aren't as charismatic or able to employ rhetoric as well.
That happens as well. Like, there's always a risk you will.
No, I think that's predominantly what happens.
No, I would say predominantly what happens is that people don't have the factual foundation. More often than not, that's the case. Because the people that typically argue that they can't engage in the rhetoric or whatever are usually only engaging in rhetoric. The pathos and ethos part, very rarely are they engaging in any form of like factual analysis that they don't feel comfortable bringing up in a conversation. That almost never happens.
But it depends on what the facts are of any issue and where you're getting it from.
And that's
God.
also the main reason why, and this is purely an opinion thing, but I think debate being about persuasion rather than about actually determining what the facts are and trying to gain a better understanding is a problem in the general format of most debates. If I go into a debate, generally speaking, I'm hoping to have an opportunity to have an actual exchange of idea to try and get an understanding of the other person's point of view, not necessarily for any persuasive reason, but to actually gain understanding and knowledge on a topic that I don't already have. And I don't see that as being what most of these online debates are doing. Most of them are about who can dunk on who better, not about the actual substance of the ideas, the actual facts of the matter, and trying to get a better understanding of the world in general, which I think is what a lot of these debates should be. Now, again, that's an opinion on my part. I don't see the sophistry side of online debate as particularly useful, but if we can actually get into, proper philosophical discussions and actually, explore ideas, then my mind can be changed.
You can tell it's largely about sophistry rather than, some sort of learned discourse to arrive at some better understanding of the world, because so rarely do any of the people involved ever concede a point or fundamentally change based on some new argument or piece of evidence. It doesn't really happen, and so they end up arguing fucking absurd positions because to not do so would be made to look like you were foolish and you got wrecked and owned in the marketplace of ideas. And the ultimate example was Destiny the other week with his Hamas are making cookies into rocket fuel bullshit. If you just start rambling on absurd points, never conceding anything, then clearly you're not doing this because you actually necessarily even believe anything. It's you've chosen a position and you will defend that to the hilt because you're a sophist.
What part? Wait, well, what part? Well, for the factual analysis, wait, what part of that was incorrect?
Man, when Ryan Grimm hits you with the fact that
I want to hear a response to that. What was the factually incorrect part about that?
Turning cookies into rocket fuel.
Yeah, what was the factually incorrect part of that?
They're processed cookies, man, with flour and chocolate. And
Hold on, this happens. Wait, this happens so many times when they come up. So just to be clear, you're the one engaging in sophistry and rhetoric right now because you're taking something like a cookie into rocket fuel. You're doing an appeal right now, right, to somebody's emotion, to the incredulity, yes.
We saw you argue that point.
I know, but I'm asking you why it's wrong.
Because it's not true. That's not how that. You think they were turning cookies into rocket fuel? It's not real.
Do you know how rocket fuel for crude rockets? Well, wait. Do you know how rocket fuel for crude rockets is made?
There is a Mythbusters episode on this where they had to use a shit ton of gummies, which are pure sugar.
Yep.
You're talking about a cookie.
I just want to be clear. To be clear.
Chocolate, flour,
to be clear,
baking powder.
That's
you
great.
Understand how chemistry works.
Gotcha. I'm more than you, I promise. Okay. So just to be clear, I just demonstrated the sophistry right here happened, and what I said earlier happened in real time.
Hey, we gotta go one at a time. Let Destiny finish, and then you can all.
So earlier, what was said, this just happened in real time, where a bunch of people say, "I just want to talk about the facts," and I think that online debaters only engage in rhetoric and sophistry. And then I just got two people going, "Cookies into rocket fuel." There was no factual analysis there.
I just explained why that's impossible.
Okay, so let's actually dig into this cookies into rocket fuel thing then. So a cookie is just pointing out. I'm going to go into it. A cookie, as Justin pointed out, is a combination of flour, chocolate, sugar, a number of other ingredients. Turning that into rocket fuel is not likely to be very effective. Certainly, maybe possible, but if you want to have actual, proper rocket fuel, you're going to want to go from the raw ingredients, not a post-processed product like a cookie. So if you want to get the carbohydrates for energy, the oxidizers, all of that shit together, getting it from a cookie is not going to be the most efficient way and is likely going to result in an incredibly poor product, as opposed to going to the raw ingredients to make a rocket fuel, various forms of, high level combustion compounds, oxidizers, etc.
Correct. So that's the whole point, is people making rocket fuel when they have poor access to supplies. Yes.
No. But I think the knockout blow from Ryan Grimm to you was the fact that their number one thing they're employing to make munitions is unexploded munitions from Israel because so many are dropped on Gaza. And I can't believe you had the audacity to even argue after that.
How do you
that
think?
Was embarrassing.
How do you think those unexploded munitions get over the wall, Justin? Do you think they throw them
Not
like
from
footballs?
cookies.
Do you think they throw them like footballs?
They're not using cookies. As
Justin,
rocket
how do you
fuel.
think they get over to the wall? Do you think they throw them like footballs, like in an American football game? Do you think they throw
Are
them?
you arguing they're using cookies to fuel them?
Justin, can you tell me how you think they get over the
Destiny,
wall?
are you arguing they're using cookies to fuel them?
You've no idea. Okay, you're
this
talking
right
about you're
here-
talking about the explosive part of a rocket, but it needs fuel to make it travel so that it can go explode somewhere. You can't use unexploded munitions to fuel a rocket to travel somewhere. They don't throw them like footballs.
This right here is a perfect example of why this style of debate is so toxic in my view, because
I'm glad you pointed
both
out.
of you right there were just talking past each other instead of actually trying to come to a shared understanding on the topic.
I'm sorry, hold on,
kept
no.
Asking, do you? Oh, no, hold on. Let me finish. Justin keeps asking, do you think they're using cookies? Destiny keeps asking, do you think they're throwing them over the wall? Neither of you is actually trying to get to an understanding of, okay, how is the fuel being created to send these rockets back over the wall? No, it's just constantly yelling back and forth, and it's nonsense.
What do you think, Destiny?
So so the claim, first of all, he cites an irrelevant point, which is unexploded munitions being used as warheads. Warheads are not delivery vehicles, so that's already an absurd point. And then the second point is to reductively ask.
Hold on.
The second point is the
lie.
second point is the reductive part of like, are they using cookies to make rockets? They probably don't have a fuel tank labeled double stuffed Oreos. That'd be my guess. But that's not the point. That's not even my argument. Like, the argument is whether or not, and there are videos of people that say they've done this. I tweeted one out, if you don't believe me, where you can extract sugar from things, you mix it with fertilizer, and you have a very, very crude form of rocket fuel. And you can use that to send things over the wall. The warheads may be unexploded munitions, but like, it's possible to do this. It's not, so whoever's citing chemistry as it being impossible, that's not a correct argument. If we're saying, well, they actually use unexploded Israeli munitions as warheads, that's not really relevant. We're talking about the delivery vehicle.
Then you should have pointed that out to them before they just went on that diatribe, and you guys just went in that back and forth. You should.
I didn't even have
an.
nobody even asked it. There's no critical engagement with the topic. They already brought this up as something they're highly critical of after accusing me of being a sophist without even having.
He's just got rhetoric. That's all this is. This is all.
Hold on. No. You're doing rhetoric. You haven't engaged in the factual analysis.
He just wants to defend one position, and that's it. It doesn't matter at this point. He's not engaging in any kind of. There's no coming to minds between two people, because Destiny's got his position, and he will never ever move from that.
Except that's not true, because
that would be to just reveal his entire debate structure as bullshit.
Or I'm the only one here that's done the factual analysis. You had no idea what you were talking about, but you were ready to criticize me for the opinion.
Wikipedia. You didn't know anything about this until October the 8th. Shut the up, dude. You're now the world's
You just did it again.
expert.
Hold on. Do you think that not knowing something until a certain date means that particular thing is wrong? Or if something appears on a certain website, does that make it wrong? You just engaged in another sophist argument.
You have engaged in nothing but just looking for your pithy little one-liners so you can go out there and say.
Then demonstrate how I'm incorrect. Then all you have to do, sir, is demonstrate I'm incorrect. It's so simple.
Because Hassan Piker believes a thing, I believe the opposite thing.
Then demonstrate how I'm incorrect. That's so easy. It's so easy. None of you guys are able to do this. Not a single one of you on this panel will be able to demonstrate a single point I've been incorrect on. Instead, you all engage in rhetoric and sophistry while accusing me of doing the same, and then walking back feeling like you've made a point.
You actually denied in that Ryan Grimm debate that they were using Israeli munitions.
I said I wasn't familiar. His claim, first of all, I can be wrong about a thing, number one. Number two, his claim was that the majority of the rockets were made out of unexploded munitions. That's what I took umbrage with. I don't believe that's true. I haven't looked that up. It may or may not be true. But on the third point, it's not really relevant.
You took umbrage with it even though you hadn't looked it up.
Because I hadn't heard that particular point before. It could be true, but it doesn't sound right to me. But the third point is also that it doesn't matter. We're talking about the delivery vehicle, not the warhead. Do you understand the
Hey, I
difference?
wanna-
Hold on, wait. No, I'm sorry. Do you understand the difference between a delivery vehicle and a warhead? Like, for a nuclear missile, an ICBM, those aren't powered with the nuclear warhead. There's two different things, right?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
the actual
the
argument was
ICBM,
about
they're all
why
used
they
on cookies.
banned cookies, right?
You only use cookies. Yeah.
And then you hyper focused on this one issue.
What did I hyper? You're the one screaming, can you make rockets out of cookies?
No, because the actual argument was why they banned cookies from entering, right?
Sure.
Why Israel had banned cookies.
Correct. Yes.
And your argument was that they were using it as fuel, and that was why Israel was justified.
The larger argument is, does Israel ban things as a form of collective punishment, or do they enact these bans for security measures? And when they point to certain products that I'm familiar with have been used to create, basically shitty rockets, the first iterations of world casting rockets, that there are probably reasons for doing this. Now, it might be that banning certain products, the thing is that there are good arguments against my point, and you guys don't even know them because you haven't engaged with the topic. For instance, they didn't actually ban any refined sugar at all. Well, if they're going to use cookies to make rockets, why wouldn't they ban refined sugar? That would be a good counter to the argument that I have. Another argument might be that they actually lifted this ban.
Found out later after that debate?
Yes, because I did more reading and research on it afterwards. Yeah, correct. That's what you do when you're trying to become a more educated person, is you do reading and research. Yes.
Do you think that
Hey,
debate?
Destiny.
Just real quick question, Destiny. Do you think that debate spurred you to do more research into the topic?
Yeah, if I ever feel like I'm wrong or have an unsatisfactory answer to something, I'll do the answer, or I'll do the research and figure out the answer to it. But it's really
Or were you
pathetic
just
when I'm
trying to justify your position on Twitter and tweeting through it as everybody was trying to own you?
But do you see the issue is that I know deeper arguments on both sides of this than you do, and you're trying to critique me on my position. You don't even know what my original position was. You don't know any of the counter
You don't even know what my
arguments.
position is. I've barely said anything.
Your position was screaming at me about whether or not you can use cookies
wasn't
to make
screaming.
rockets. If you had the answer that I just gave you, which now
That's
you
a
can use
straw
against
man.
other
you
people
deserve
in
a
the
titty
future,
slap for that.
now at least you have the right answer. But
What? Okay,
Hey,
hold
Destiny.
on. What are we doing with the?
What's going on with
Careful
that?
on the careful. I don't want to get tossed or what. I don't know what you're going to put up on the screen. Please don't do that again.
Destiny, I just wanted to say that only those two were the ones talking with you about the rocket fuel issue. Don't say it like we were all arguing this, because I don't know anything about this, so I'm not going to comment on it. But that also adds to this whole issue that I have with online debates, is that people are talking about issues that I don't know how rocket fuel is made over in the Middle East. I'm not going to pretend I do. But yeah, that's another thing why I think this is a very big issue, because we're having just laymen talk about this.
Origin, do you think that it is that it has a use if someone is exposed as not knowing what they're talking about? So if a layman comes on, hasn't done any research, and is exposed to be wrong live on WhickTV or something, right? Do you think that there's no value in that?
I say there is value in it, but it depends on who is actually exposing it and if they are actually in a position to expose.
If I, as a layman, someone who doesn't have a PhD, can expose a point to be wrong, why is it different than someone with a PhD exposing that point to be wrong? If we both can do it, if we both know the actual, if we both have evidence for our claims, if we both have research to back it up, why does a PhD after my name matter?
Well, in that case, I would say that all depends on context. It depends on what you have as evidence against another person on any given topic, and if you actually have some understanding of it versus the PhD person. It depends on context, I would say, in that instance.
Non-smoker, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, no, I just I kind of want to jump in on that. So look, I mean, it's I guess it can be beneficial to point out when someone's factual. It's obviously beneficial if someone's pointed out to be factually wrong about something. I think there's a major problem actually, though, in the way that this online debate culture operates. And that's if someone who is an expert or a PhD is shown to be wrong, factually wrong about one thing or one argument, it's treated as this major own, and suddenly everything that they say is subject to being wrong, and it's more about embarrassing the person or whatever. And it also, because of that, it kind of creates this climate where people are afraid to say they don't know something, or they're afraid to acknowledge that they're wrong on a factual point when they get into these debates. So then it's this weird contest of trying to find where the other person slips up to get the big own, rather than trying to clarify the entire conversation for everyone. I think that's a major flaw in all of this. Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah, but the people that engage in this sometimes the most are the people that also screech and cry that debate isn't worthwhile, which is why there are people in here screaming that I guess that I'm on speed, and people screaming that I read Wikipedia.
Brother, you've been the one doing the screaming right here.
Dude, I mean, you're the biggest streamer, so you're going to get a lot of people, especially other streamers, criticizing you for stuff.
I'm just saying, just within within this room right here, within this conversation right here, the past 30 minutes, this has happened in here.
Right. I mean, I can't speak for everybody else. You know, I could say, like, from my standpoint, the issue I have with your content in particular is not even so much the way that you debate or even any of your positions, even though I disagree with a lot of the stuff you say. I feel like the community around it, from my vantage point anyway, is sort of the problem, right? Like, there's this very much this mentality of, like, this kind of ironically an echo chamber is developed. And it's when you engage with people, it becomes like this, you know, almost like this project to try and own them or present them as a fool. And then everybody in that echo chamber, like, you know, kind of perpetuates that. And it's all about like finding faults and flaws and little mistakes that they make and then tearing them down and owning them rather than clarifying the position or deepening anybody's understanding or opening other people up to different ideas.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but this is a thing that's just said and passed on with no analysis, right? So all of the cookie pro and against talking points I can give you because my community was critical of that position. That's why I know there are other talking points against that particular thing as well. But I don't know it because of anything people like Justin or Kevin have said because they have no critical engagement with it. They just screech and scream on Twitter going, "Can you build rockets with cookies?"
Keep saying it. Just keep saying it. Yeah.
I am, yeah.
All you've got to say is just. Okay. All you've got to say is, well, see, actually, I'm not the sophist. You're the sophist.
Oh well, okay. Yeah, this is a super simple. Wait. Do you acknowledge that?
And you win.
Do you acknowledge that saying that you didn't know anything until October 8th and you read Wikipedia? Neither of those are real arguments, right? They don't preclude me from being right or wrong on anything.
At that point, I wasn't trying to make an argument.
Oh, okay. Do you Okay, that's fine. Prior to that, saying
there's a difference between an ad hominem and just saying a critique of somebody.
That's fair. So
or just insulting somebody.
Okay. You know? So prior to that, going, are you saying you could build rockets out of cookies? You understand that's not an argument either, right?
Well, no, because it just felt a bit silly. You saying, well, you should engage in fact, the best person with the factual arguments is
saying that it feels a bit silly. That's not an argument either. You haven't made a single argument in all the talking you've done. Can you name one factual? Okay, I'm sorry. Then prove me wrong. I'm giving you the opportunity. Can you name a single factual argument that you've brought against anything I've said, anything of substance?
Well, apart from they weren't turning cookies into rocket fuel.
That's not. First of all, you didn't say that. You incredulously asked if it was even possible. You made it sound like it was impossible.
Oh, God. So this is the point. It's just bullshit.
It is the point. Thank you. It is the point. I agree. It is. You already admitted to it. But this is everything. Every single time I run into people that say it's rhetoric.
The whole point I was just trying to make with it was that you haven't come to this because of an honest inquiry. You've chosen a position which is pro-Israel, and you will just defend it to the hilt.
That's hold on. Wait. To be clear, wait. That's not true. The way that I got to it was I was curious how a long time ago, like months and months ago, how does Hamas fire so many rockets into Israel? And what I learned was that part of the way that you do this is through combining fertilizer with sugars. You can make crude rockets. That's why the first generation of rockets that Hamas fired into Israel were so imprecise, why like 10% of them fall into their own fucking territory, but how they're still able to do it without shipping in a bunch of rocket fuels, because you can make crude rockets by combining fertilizer, something nitrate, and then some type of simple sugar to make rocket fuel. That's why I knew that particular thing. So when somebody says, oh, Israel banned cookies from this particular thing, oh, okay, well, if they did it, I imagine this would be my guess why it is. If you want to argue against that point, if it's not, but I didn't die on it. See, I changed my mind because I gathered new information. No thanks to your kind, who know nothing about anything that's being spoken about right now. Yeah, the people that go on Twitter and engage in sophistry while accusing me of doing the same thing.
I'm not even on Twitter. What are you talking about?
Okay, in debate panels. You can try to obfuscate as much as you want, but like it's the same thing. Yeah.
I wanna get a chance to Incom Psychom's being very cordial right now, so I'm going to reward him by giving him a chance to speak. Go ahead.
I wanted to kind of springboard off of non-smokers' idea that your audience, your kind of general environment, it has become an echo chamber, and ask you, in your view, has there ever been a point where, say, you've brought someone onto your stream and spoken with them and had your mind changed, and in doing so changed some segment of your audience's mind? Is there an example, or even just kind of a sense that this is something that's happened in your environment before?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. Do you want me to just like start running them down? Do you want it over a particular topic or a particular time frame, or?
I don't have any particular criteria. An example would be nice, but I'm not going to demand
Sure.
it.
I mean, like historically, I've been a long time ago. I had huge issues relating to abortion. I was staunchly pro-life over several arguments, especially one with a vegan, I think, member of my community. Like, I slowly changed my opinion to being pro-choice. I used to be anti-lobbying. I thought it was a huge issue for politics in general, that you would have lobbying and donors and stuff. And then I had a big debate with a community member called X Kills Me, and then I slowly changed my mind over that after that. In relation to like Israel-Palestine stuff, for instance, I thought that in the 6-Day War, I thought that Egypt and all the surrounding countries were like super keen on attacking Israel, and through doing more research and having conversations with that, I was like, oh, okay, there was something more complicated going here. It wasn't necessarily that Israel or that the countries were more posturing and didn't want to. I mean, I'm sure I could probably dig and think through more topics if you want, but like, yeah, my mind has been changed on a lot of things. Yeah, my community sometimes has been critical of things that I've believed, and they've said. So, for instance, the cookie thing is a good example where people did a lot of research and they said that, like, well, whether this ban actually happened or not, it seems like unclear. It probably didn't happen, or there's a ton of different things that my community will fact check me on, or other people will come on and debate me on. Loner Box has like adjusted my opinion on quite a few things. Dylan Burns, when I did a debate with Ben Shapiro, a lot of people in my community were critical that I was a little bit too soft on like the Ukraine thing, and I should have leaned harder into that. And I kind of like adjusted my rhetoric and my thoughts accordingly. I don't know. I can think of like, there's tons of examples. We can go through more particular or more macro topics. Yeah.
The examples you've given have largely been people in your community changing your view, and that's fantastic. But I'm curious if you have a sense of that influence going the other way, where your mind being changed has led to the change of mind of large numbers of members of your community. Do you think that's something that occurs around the same frequency?
But that's way easier. If I change my mind on something, or I put a new position on something, then people will grab to it pretty easily. The easiest example of this is like my opinion on like certain types of words we should say or not. So I go back and forth on like whether or not we should say retarded, and as soon as I say yes or no to that, like my community will change almost immediately. So as soon as like like we can call people retards again, like a whole bunch of my people in my community started changing on that. So yeah, I think there's going to be some level of change there. Like if I say tomorrow, like actually I'm a huge Donald Trump supporter, my community's probably not going to follow me on that. It depends. There's literally like a meme in my community of like a Pepe steering a steering wheel where like when I give an opinion, some people will change their mind just because of it. Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, well, great. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand, right? So I guess for the debate deniers here, has there been any debates you've listened to, whether offline or online, who have edified you, or what I mean by that is educated you, or changed your mind on anything? You can't think of a single time?
Well, no, I wouldn't say like debate denier. I think debate is once again, I did it in high school and college. Also, like when it comes to like presidential debates, I don't think modern presidential debates are very effective. I think they're more political theater. But
what's the difference between when it was effective and why it's
when
not,
the League of Women Voters put it on, and it was far more contentious and hard questions were asked as opposed to like pre-approved questions by both campaigns through the presidential commission.
Okay, so when it was
that's
hard
always,
for me.
That was always strange to me that they allow pre-arranged questions. Like it should be a completely independent process, right?
That's the way it was with the League of Women Voters up until '84.
Really? Okay.
interesting.
And for me, it's hard to say, Wick, because in order for me to, I guess, change my mind on anything when it comes to watching debates, a lot of it is going to have to be internal, and also it has to do a lot with if what the people are talking about is some insight that I haven't heard before a million times, just rehashed from different people. Because typically people will just kind of say the exact same narrative or talking point that they just hear other streamers or people talk about, and it's just like I'm not hearing anything different.
No, but
There have been there have been
Go
a
ahead.
few debates that have, I think, been. Like, I think edifying is the word, actually. And it's not about necessarily rhetoric, but about literally being a really good orator beyond rhetoric. That I think is good. I think there's a it's very old now, but James Baldwin versus what's his name?
William F. Buckley Jr.
William Buckley, yes, at Oxford University, which I think is an excellent debate, which I think everyone should go and watch for oratory and putting together arguments and stuff, because I think they both do a very good job. So I like that kind of thing. I just think there is a qualitative difference between something impressive and worthwhile and that, and then whatever this space is, you know.
The difference between that, I just want to say that James Baldwin and William F. Buckley Jr., I think what makes that a little bit different and a little bit more clean and a little bit more well-lettered is the fact that they were both well-researched, well-lettered people. And James Baldwin was addressing a really critical issue at that time, which was during the Civil Rights era, and how African Americans weren't being treated fairly and how we have to see them in a different light. And he brought in insights that were very poetic. And so,
and you don't think that can happen in this space?
And ironically, given that I'm interrupting now to say this, but the fact that they weren't interrupting each other, they were given 10 minutes to speak and then a wrap up and all of that. That, I think, that more formal structure leads to something more edifying. It won't necessarily convince more people, but I think it's more edifying for me.
Look, so I always hated debates. I always hated engaging in debates. I always hated watching debates. In fact, the only reason I do it is because I kind of have like a side interest in getting into broadcasting, and the lowest barrier to entry is like Twitch streaming, and the best way to get viewers on Twitch is to debate. That's really the only reason I engage in it. I think it's a total fucking stupid waste of time. That said, some debaters and some of that content, I find entertaining, and I guess it's maybe persuaded me to do more research. But I don't think any debater has ever made, at least online, has made a really good case where I was like, wow, I got to really think this, major issue. Most of it is, retard level, blood sports for the internet, It's clout chasing, it's silliness, it's stupid, it's dumb. That's the way I've always felt about it.
To be clear, the majority of you guys that are saying you'll never have your mind changed by a debate is because you're incapable of considering an opinion that's not your own. So when you say, I've watched some debates and they're really good, it's because you probably watch people that you already agreed with. So, of course, nothing's going to change your mind on a particular thing because you're not looking to have your mind changed.
Because I've changed my positions. No, that's bullshit. I've changed my positions multiple times in my life on various issues. You and I are actually the same age. I've gone through a bunch of different political changes, rethought things, done, reading and research. It's not about I'll never have my position changed on something. It's just, it's hard for me to have my position changed on something by two people who are having a dunk fest. That's really retarded.
Yeah, but your opinion doesn't change overnight. You see a thing, you have a doubt, and then it happens over time. Just like a single book, a single class, a single whatever doesn't change your opinion. You hear something and then it, sows the seeds, and then over time you might move in a certain direction. That's generally how people change their minds.
Yeah,
it just hasn't happened. Hold on. It hasn't happened with online debates, is what I'm saying. I haven't been motivated or compelled to change my view based on online debates, even from the initial, arguments made in debates. I've only been in this space and really engaged with this content for a year or two, and in that time, my positions haven't changed a great deal.
And I was just going to say, Destiny, that I actually will look more into things, but it really depends on if I'm hearing something from a person, if it's an expert or not, if they're giving me an insight that I've never even heard before, or something that seems like an angle that seems like I've never read or heard from any other area. So it really just depends on what is being discussed. And if I'm just hearing the same few ideas repeated over and over again, it's not going to make me want to look into it because I've heard it all before.
I know Justin wanted to speak, so I'm going to get to him. And then at the top of the hour, gang, I'm going to read these super chats, right, so that people can give me money, and then we'll continue on with the discussion. Go ahead, Justin.
It's weird that Destiny throws out a lot of accusations and ascribes position to us, and then tries to make us defend against his accusations. I think that's a dirty rhetorical tactic he's employing.
Nice, good contribution.
Do you want to respond to that, Destiny, or?
But there's nothing. There hasn't been anything of substance to respond to yet.
Sure, fair enough. Okay,
he also is not caring enough about the debate that he's eating spaghetti off to the side. This is wild.
I was eating burgers, and I care about the debate, so it's okay to eat, right?
Maybe he didn't eat earlier.
I mean, in fairness, like this is not a fact-based conversation really at all. So to make it interesting, you kind of have to throw accusations out, and some of us have done that to him
Wait,
too.
why is this not
Well,
a
it doesn't.
fact-based-
It doesn't have to be fact based. It would be nice for there to be good examples. So, like when somebody
No, but
says,
what I'm saying is like you throwing out a quote baseless accusation just to get the ball rolling in one direction, I think is fair game given the context. Is what I'm saying.
but like I'm just saying for earlier things, I'm like, okay, well, what's an example of this happening, or what's it like you don't like? Not you personally, but somebody here or somebody in general doesn't like sophistry in a debate. What's an example of that? And I just haven't heard good examples of that
We'll
so
get to
far.
that
I guess.
after the super chats. I am going to ask you guys' best examples of Destiny engaging in sophistry because I think it'd be interesting to explore. But let's get to these. Slongy and Stew for $5. We think he called them DGGers because the Destiny Gish Gallop is his only rhetorical tool, even though we hope he crushes the commies this evening. Thank you for the $5. $20 from Lawson Harrison. I'm curious how the anti-debate side feels about street epistemology. Anyone here a lover of street epistemology?
I've seen it. I don't watch it regularly.
Okay. No bites
I've seen
on
it. I've seen a few videos at one point, like a few years ago. Not too bad. I mean, I can't remember his name, but the guy who asked the strangers the questions of what
Peter
they
Boghossian.
believe and why. It's interesting.
$10 from C Goach 87. Sorry if I got your name wrong. Kevin Logan, what makes you a more ethical online debater than Destiny? Are you? And this is to non-smoker. What do you think can be done to prepare kids to actively participate in their local, state, and national politics? So Kevin Logan first and non-smoker.
I go into it for my own entertainment. Hopefully other people are entertained. I'm not really trying to necessarily change minds. I don't see this as part of my activism particularly. Whether that makes me more or less moral as a debater, I don't fucking know. But at least I'm being honest about what I am.
Sure. And non-smoker, what do you think can be done to prepare kids to actively participate in their local, state, and national politics? Concise.
I mean, that's a great question. You know, I wish I had the fucking answer for that, right? Like, who doesn't? I mean, speak to the issues that matter to young people. You know, I know it's very general, but like, I can say this, you know, even if you try to do that, I mean, almost all of my students love Trump, and it's based on nothing other than the fact that they think he's funny. You know, it's like they're teenagers, you know what I mean? They're fucking, in some ways, brainless. And you try to inform them and you try to get them to understand, you know, their economic reality and all that kind of stuff, social reality. And, you know, but I'm also limited into how I can try to persuade them one way or another. So you know what I do? Actually, even though I don't vote myself, criticize me for that all you want, I get them all registered. So, you know, at least they have the option.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what age do you teach?
It varies. Like the youngest I have is 14, and the oldest I have is 18. So it's an alternative school, so it's all different ages.
Let me get through the rest of these. $10 from Psychonaut. I think debate is less about changing someone's mind and more about exposing them to another point of view. Without debates, how will one side ever find out about the other side? Thank you for the $10. $5 from Turtle Emergency. The debates don't matter, guys. Should live their values and would have logged off after opening remarks if they were serious. Missed opportunity. Thank you for the $5. But no, you guys should.
Well, can I just respond to that? That's silly. Just because we don't think it's necessarily as politically efficacious doesn't mean it's not personally entertaining or whatever. Like it's.
Or we like clout and money.
Yeah.
I don't debate. Like this is like one of the few panels I've ever done.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do panels super often, but like I think it can still be interesting to talk about the topic, even if I don't think anyone's mind is going to be changed. Like hearing the arguments that Destiny has been making has at the very least been interesting to me. I don't necessarily agree with him, but I also can't articulate the reasons why in a convincing or persuasive way. So in this case, it's just for my own interest.
Fair enough. $2 from Gelatinous Rube. Debate deniers want us to despair and fudge dice. Thank you for the $2. $5 from Turtle Emergency. If debate makes you want to do research, isn't that a success? $5 from Normal America with Rob Noor. Say, this debate is just a bunch of guys who suck at debate complaining that debate isn't important. $5.
Rob, you know we've heard you talk before, right, Rob? Come on now, mate.
$5 from Venus Bloodflow.
I have debated Rob before.
Yeah. Destiny, did you let Fuentes search your room for cum? And And then $10, final one, from SGM. I don't understand why you're all here if you're not trying to persuade people to understand your position and gather a following to gather a literal influence. And we're going to cut it off there. Justice 35, I'll see you. At the end of the show, we'll read the rest. Don't worry. Keep sending me money. But I guess...
was that reference earlier to Rob Noor?
Yes.
Oh, Rob Noor is one of the few people that's actually capable of, like, factually and reasonably, without being a sophist, engaging in debate, which is funny to hear anybody here make fun of him, but sorry, God.
Yeah, so I guess
hilarious. Yeah.
On the sophistry angle, right? So you've all, well, not all of you, right? But a few of you have accused Destiny of being a sophist. Can you give a specific example of that for us, please? Not all at once.
Well, I'll go ahead and say I have no clue because I don't watch any of your content. I don't watch.
Don't worry, we know.
Other streamers. I don't like other people's opinions seeping into my own and stuff, and so.
Yeah, we could tell.
Okay, but you did.
You really are upset with me in the comment I made at the beginning, aren't you?
Well,
I'm not upset at all. This is good for me because August will repost this video.
The only reason I was asserting that because you're talking really fast, blah 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 blah, like you're on fucking speed, dude. And
I've always spoken like this. I've got 15 years of content that you can go back and watch.
I don't fucking know you, dude.
If you don't know me, why would the first accusation be that I'm doing drugs?
Because you were fucking grinding your teeth.
I'm not grinding my teeth. What are you talking about?
Look to be grinding your teeth like somebody who was on speed, and you also talk like somebody who was on speed.
Okay.
So it was an innocent question that you turned into like a fucking personal attack.
Yeah. So this is like at the very least.
Sorry, I came off that way.
I would appreciate
and once you
it.
said you had a lisp, I felt sorry about it.
Oh, you trust me.
You've had a stick up your ass about it.
I don't need any sympathy from you. You're fine. Okay. Yeah, just like you won't even own the insult, right? Like, oh, I didn't know. Sorry, it was just an innocent question. That's not an innocent question. What are you talking about?
No. I am very.
That's an innocent question. Are you on drugs?
People using drugs, yes.
Okay, that's fine. So then, in that case, my mental handicap, like comment about you earlier, wasn't an insult. It was just an observation, I guess. All right.
Oh. Okay. I mean, I explained why I thought that, and like you have.
And I just explained why I thought it. Yeah.
The examples of somebody who is on speed. I apologize. As I said, I felt bad about it.
Okay.
So
do we have any examples in this group of Destiny?
We're getting there. Don't worry.
I already brought it up earlier, but the recent outbreak of racial slur nonsense. The idea that the N-word is fine, but saying cracker is somehow some terribly obscene thing, which should be seen as racist, is pretty obviously a nakedly bullshit.
I love this. No, wait. I love this. It's such a good follow video. Do you even know what my argument or position was on that?
Why don't you tell us?
No, you brought it up as an example for sophistry that I engage in, and now my counterexample is that this is you engaging in sophistry. So I'm not going to give you the answer. I want to hear you.
Cracker is an anti-white racial slur. Yes.
Are you asking me or are you telling me?
He's asking for clarification.
No, he already declared that this was a sophist thing that I engaged in. So if I've engaged in sophistry, you shouldn't need clarification. You've already made the declaration of what it is. So I just want to hear how it was sophistry.
You've argued that the word cracker is racist, yes?
Don't ask me. Just tell me my position. What did I say that you believe was...
Motherfucker. Wow.
What did I believe that was sophist?
This is so pathetic.
I'm not pathetic. You brought up the example. I'm sorry that you brought up an example where you're not familiar with what my position is because you're engaging in rhetoric and sophistry. That's what you're doing. You're demonstrating it in real time.
Do you not believe that?
We're catching you.
No, okay.
What?
Here's your chance to clarify. Do you not believe that then?
Oh, if you want clarification, I think that cracker is a racial slur. Yes.
Right, but you're okay with the N-word?
Those aren't the same question. Can you ask the same question for both?
No, okay, but my point is, that's obviously ridiculous. You must know that's ridiculous.
What's ridiculous? Wait. I don't know. You didn't ask the same question. You didn't ask the same question. Ask the same question for both things.
The idea that one of them is offensive, but the other word is not offensive.
Who said that? Wait. Did somebody say? Is somebody blacked in here, Wick? Is there somebody in here talking that I can't hear? Who said that? Who just said one was offensive and one wasn't?
Manifesto about how you should be able to say the N-word.
Did I? Have I ever written an you're engaging, you're doing it. You're in 4K right now. I've written a manifesto defending the use of the N-word?
When did he say that?
This is every conversation I have about people that say, it's always the same pattern too. Debaters just use rhetoric and they don't actually factually analyze anything. And there's always people that just engage in rhetoric and sophistry and don't use any factual analysis. Every single time. Every single time. Every single time.
I feel like he's asking for clarification on your actual.
No, he's not. He's already made up his mind on it. I'm sure if we dug through his Twitter or streams, he's probably already made judgments about me against it. That's why he brought this up as an example. I didn't bring these up. He did. But he has no idea about any of them.
Obviously, I have opinions about you.
Destiny, come at it from good faith right now.
Hold on.
Just
from
no, it's not about good faith. If somebody comes up and they say like, "Hey, are you a pedophile? I heard that you 4-year-olds. Is that true?" That's not a good faith question. That's an insane question.
It's a loaded question.
You don't think it's a loaded question to go, didn't you write an N-word manifesto? Didn't you say that one word was more offensive than the other?
N-word manifesto.
That's what he was just hinting at. That's what he was getting at the end there. That's what he was referring to.
Hinting. You're ascribing a position to him.
That's what he was just saying. You just missed that part of the conversation.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Crime.
Enough.
And you literally having said the N-word.
Kevin Logan, I'm just very curious for my own edification, right? What about the argument, regardless of what you think he said or not, right? Regardless of what he actually said or not, to you, what about that argument that he makes is sophistry? Like, why is it sophistry?
Because I'm going to say he's not so stupid as to not understand the social use of either or both of those words. He argues, I think, in bad faith, in a sophist way, that cracker is offensive, and you shouldn't be able to use that or whatever on that whole fucking Twitch thing that happened a million years ago now. But will defend.
Was that because of you?
His use of the end. No, not because of me. No.
Well, let him.
No, it was because of Destiny.
I'm very curious to answer. Go ahead.
Destiny was it was a Destiny Hassan bit from ages ago. Yeah. Anyway, that's old.
I remember
drama.
when it happened, but I had no clue what it was.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Kevin doesn't either. Apparently.
Use of the N-word is apparently just fucking super fine and dandy, and you must know that the other way around is basically true because no white person has ever actually been offended by.
So if I'm hearing
ridiculous.
it right, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm misconstruing it, please. This is just what I heard, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're here. You are arguing that Destiny absolutely has a position on this that he doesn't actually believe, that he knows, he's smart enough to know that the position that he has outlined is faulty in nature, and therefore he's arguing it from a position of bad faith, where he's not being honest. He's really believes one thing, but he's arguing another just for why? For clout? For
to play, I suppose, devil's advocate. I think he enjoys playing at the edges of edgy discourse or whatever. Yeah.
Wait, I'm curious. Let's wait real quick. Let's play a game. Can you steel man my argument? Can you give me the strongest version of that argument?
Oh, dude, I'm not going to play your stupid fucking games, mate. You steel man your own fucking argument.
Unreal.
Or suck my arse.
All right,
I don't really give a
let me ask. Hey,
Well,
Destiny,
if you're gonna suck ass,
I'm very.
It's just like the perfect encapsulation of like a bad faith actor. But then like
right,
crying that I
Destiny.
engage in sophistry. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Okay, what is your position on the N-word and on the word cracker? What are your positions?
My
on those
position is
words?
that you probably should never call people racial slurs. It's not good to call people racial slurs. So whether that's the cracker word, whether that's the N-word, you probably shouldn't call people racial slurs. As for people using individual words, I usually just don't care that much. I don't care that much. It's not a big thing to me. But I do find it odd that people will defend deploying some racial slurs against some groups, like cracker, while being adamant that another word can't even be used in a non-pejorative context. That's really hypocritical to me. That was
so
my
it's
position.
the double standard problem.
Yeah, I guess, sure.
So can I ask a clarifying question? If you were to put these two words on a scale of inappropriateness, just from your own opinion, would you put them on a different level? And if so, how different would they be?
They're both racial slurs, but I mean, one is clearly has more social gravity than the other. The N-word is clearly, there's a reason why we're saying the N-word and then cracker.
Yes. Okay. So in that case, your argument a moment ago seemed to be that the thing that bothered you about it was the fact that one of these is allowed to be used while the other is, so taboo as to be completely non-usable, and it had to do with the specific communities against which they were being used. So like the fact that it was acceptable to say slurs against white people is a problem when you're comparing it to the fact that it's pretty much universally recognized that people can't say slurs against the black community.
Yeah, I don't think you should defend racial slurs against some groups of people. I think that's insane.
Okay, so do you take into account the power dynamic, the difference in power dynamic between those two communities? Why not?
Because I don't think it's relevant for a racial slur. If it were to be the case that one day, like, black people gained more power than white people in the United States, I don't think that we can greenlight the N-word as a racial slur then. Or we can't use racial slurs against Chinese people in the United States, but if I fly to Beijing, now I can use racial slurs against... That argument just doesn't hold any weight to me. I think that racial slurs aren't bad because of power differentials. They're bad because you shouldn't insult somebody based on their race, generally, especially using a pejorative for it. I don't think that's good, generally.
Fair enough. Thank you.
So what about that... just to tie this back to the debate thing, just to tie this back to sophistry. So from that argument, Kevin Logan, you don't think he actually believes these things?
Like I say, I think he wants to be an edgy boy, and he wants to get away with saying the N-word, I guess.
How am I the edgy one when
when
other people are defending using racial slurs against white people? How does that make me the edgy one?
You're the you're the one that literally says the N-word knowing that people will be offended by it.
Yeah, but that's not... You understand you didn't respond to my question at all there?
No, but that's how you're being an edgy boy. Like your use of the R word.
Yeah, but that's not related to this argument at all.
Offended by.
If you want to argue that I'm edgy, that's a separate conversation. I am edgy, obviously. No. But you're claiming that edginess is the source of my argument here. That's not my source of my argument. I just gave you a completely and totally coherent, absolutely understandable argument for...
No. You just argued that context basically doesn't matter.
I gave you... hold on. I said the exact...
In China, that would be used here, which obviously is the case. Of course it would.
Wait, what? Hold on. I just said... The context is whether you're using it as a slur or not. That's the important part, not where you're using it or who you're using it against, although that could vary depending on the thing.
Okay. So to kind of get us back on track a little bit, to talk about debate and persuasion and things like that.
No, wait, don't go back on track. Make him concede or make him acknowledge that my argument is completely and totally consistent and coherent. There's no part of this that is bad faith or stemming from being edgy, or like make him at least acknowledge that he has no idea what he's talking about. One, he didn't know my position initially, and two, he has no attack against my position. My position is fully coherent, and it's the more empathetic one, and it's the less edgy one.
You know no one's offended by cracker.
It doesn't have to be. Hold on, and I can be in certain... And I can be in communities where people aren't offended if I say the N-word. Does that make it okay to you?
No, because you know some people will, and you haven't checked...
Oh, hold on, wait. So if I can show you some people are offended by the word cracker, which they were on LSF, and which people do get when Hassan defends it, or other lefties defending against white people, would that make it not okay? Is your rule that you can't use a slur if some people are offended by it?
Kids will pretend to be offended by cracker, but no one's offended by cracker.
Oh, I'm sorry. So now you're mind reading. So you think that like a black kid in the hood is mad when a guy on a video game says the N-word, but white people aren't mad when Hassan says we can use racial slurs against white people? That's you can mind read that.
Can you do anything without mentioning Hassan, or is it just?
We can say lefties in general. We can say Kevin Yu. We can say
Is your position literally just if Hassan believes a thing, I believe the other thing?
Was that the justification that I gave earlier for my position?
No, I'm asking you a question now. I've moved on from that.
I fully justified my position without ever invoking Hassan. I could do it again if you need me to. You probably shouldn't justify using racial slurs against people. If you want to use a word that is seen as a slur, but you're not using it against somebody or like as a slur, whatever, you're probably fair to do it. I don't care that much. That's my position. Notice how I was able to do that without invoking Hassan or any other person at all, or referring to an N-word manifesto or anything.
I don't think we're gonna get a concession.
Of course not, because he's a sophist. He's out of logic. He's got random pivots and ad homs, and that's it.
I'm not a sophist. You're a sophist.
So I think in the interest of the discussion,
that's fine. Okay.
We should let that is on record. People can go back and watch about it, and I hope you do, right, and see what happened there and make your own decisions, right. And I want to get back on topic just a little bit and ask, just like, if not debate. Right? If not people having discussions with each other and testing their ideas with each other, what do you think is persuasive in a meaningful way? Right? So if not debate, then how should we convince the people around us who do not believe like us to adopt our values? What is the best way forward here? I want to start with Ancom, and I want to hear from all of you. Go ahead.
So personally, as someone who's political view is pretty minority, the best way I've found is just through conversation and relationship. Actually taking time to get to know a person, to to try to understand who a person is, build that relationship, and over time, as you share ideas, hopefully you will be able to pull them more toward your political view. Now, of course, there's also the possibility that you will get pulled, but that's true of debate as well if you're going into it with any level of honesty. I think that using that personal connection as a way to convince people of an idea they don't currently believe is probably the most effective way. Whether or not it's the fastest, obviously not, because it requires a lot of, one-on-one time to make that happen. But, that's not necessarily what was being asked here.
Okay, what do you think, Kevin Logan? Debates, you said largely not persuasive. What is?
I think they can be persuasive. I just think they're rather more short-term persuasive or can sway people. I think in terms of what can be effective, I think personal engagement and the way in which you comport yourself in reality. So it's about as the former girl. Apologies, I've forgotten your name. Yellow t-shirt chap. Just said talking with people, your interpersonal interactions with people is important. Engagement with like community groups can be really important. Being politically engaged in other ways beyond just necessarily trying to convince somebody of your ideas. Organising on the ground, being involved in whatever. I mean, it depends exactly what your causes are, what you want to achieve with it. Your personal conduct, I think, is really important, and engaging in larger movements. Touching grass, basically.
Touching grass, basically. Non-smoker, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think persuasion. I think most people are motivated, at least politically, primarily by like lived experience. And so I would say then the most effective way of turning people's lived experience and thus motivations politically into like discrete, coherent positions would be education. And then I would say there's probably like a hierarchy there, and at the very fucking bottom is online debate shit. I think it's like totally fucking useless.
Do you think online debate shit is less persuasive than, say, protests or something like that, yeah?
Yeah, significantly less, I would say.
Okay, fair enough. Origin, what do you think?
What was the question again? I need you to repeat it.
If not debates, what is the path towards persuading those around you and convincing them to adopt your belief systems?
Well, I would say the best way to go about that is just to have normal conversations. You can be in Discord, Twitter, like even if you're if you know people personally, you talk with them in personal settings. Just be I would say that we need to be a little bit more considerate in how we approach these issues, and we need to be willing to understand each other. But if we need to lay bare what our expertise is in these areas. If we don't know a lot about a given subject, if we haven't researched it, and if we have no education on the subject, we should lay that out beforehand and try to be as honest as we can about our level of expertise, because that's the biggest issue I see with these online debates, is that when we have just so many laymen coming in here pretending like they know so much that they don't possibly really know, influencing big masses of people, that's the biggest issue. So I would say just try to be upfront with your level of expertise and try not to talk on issues that you're not aware of, and just be honest about it like that.
Okay. And last but certainly not least, Justin.
I don't think you can ration somebody out of a position they didn't come to rationally to begin with. And most people aren't rational. So I employ mockery, like calling right-wingers morons.
So mock them is more persuasive in your opinion.
Relentlessly.
Mocking people relentlessly is more persuasive.
Yes.
So the problem I have...
That's what online debating is, a lot of it, you know? Like, I think that's actually what makes it ineffective, is people just making fun of each other.
You want to respond to that or no?
Well, I mean, like, So after I graduated, I thought I could, have cordial debate with people and make rational arguments. And then you just get called a libtard or a wokerd or whatever, a democrat or whatever the fuck the right wants to say. So I just ended up mocking people because there's no reason to engage with people who don't want to engage in good faith anyway.
Noted. Any thoughts on this, Destiny? I have some thoughts, but I'll let Destiny go. He's our guest, so.
Yeah, I feel like different people change their mind in different ways on different topics. So, for instance, if you got a guy and you want him to be accepting of gay people, sometimes having a friend who's gay that you do other things with makes him more warm to it. Like he might have a friend, he goes bowling with him, he finds that he's gay, or he might have a child, he finds that he's gay. Sometimes it helps to humanize people to these individuals. Now, other times it can have the exact opposite effect. But having people close to you in your personal life that exhibit a bunch of characteristics you like, and then one or two that you're poised against, can make you warmer towards those other things. That's why liberals tend to be less racist than conservatives, not because they're better people, but just because we tend to be socialized in cities around other types of people, so you just have warmer feelings about them. Other people, if you engage in a lot of online spaces and that's the type of content you enjoy watching, you're probably more likely to have your mind changed by an online debater than you are a protester. If you're somebody that engages in like mutual aid or community-driven groups, you're probably more likely to have your mind changed at a meeting of, like community people rather than seeing a YouTube video or a video essay. Some people watch a lot of long-form video content on YouTube. They might see a ContraPoints video or a 2-hour persuasive argument on, somebody's YouTube channel. They might have their mind persuaded that way. I think everybody's persuaded in different ways. It just depends on the arenas you inhabit and the types of topic you're trying to change somebody's mind on.
Okay. Any thoughts on that before I give my piece? If you guys want to respond to that, feel free.
Yeah, I don't think that's really all that dissimilar to what I was saying about like lived experience being like the biggest determining factor in how people reach conclusions about things. I guess my pushback on that would be the people who are most persuaded by online debate shit are people with not a whole lot of lived experience because they're like online all day. And that's why their perspective is easily shifted by things they see on the internet, especially like dunking and debate bullshit. And if those people go out into the real world and have real experiences, those will motivate them way more than anything they learn about online.
I'm not saying you're doing this, but one worry for that is I feel like people will say that people learn well from lived experiences as long as they learn the things that you want them to learn. I'm not using you in the specific general sense. For instance, there's a lot of people in, say, Sweden that are developing really negative opinions about people that immigrated to the country after 2013, after the Syrian refugee crisis, because of how immigrants, function in southern Sweden. There are people that get robbed by a person of a certain skin color, or a woman who will get assaulted by a man, who will develop negative opinions about a whole group of people. I think that we can make the argument that somebody online who has their mind changed by a debate can just as easily have their mind changed by another debate, but people in real life that have their mind changed by a real life experience can also just as easily have their mind changed by another real life experience. So everything has its place, but everything has its limits as well.
Totally. I think that's why the most effective means of turning lived experience into like coherent positions is education. Way more than online debate, for sure. I mean, like using your example. So like you're in Sweden and you're seeing this big influx of immigrants. So you go online and you watch like a Fuentes stream or something, and then suddenly you're like a mega racist, right? Versus like someone who maybe they have these experience with immigrants and then they go to school and they learn about, the causes for the refugee crisis and so on and so forth and ways of resolving it. And they come out with a totally different position on the matter.
Yeah, they might. And then they might go online and see a video of a guy in like New York who advocated for more, immigrant integration, gets stabbed to death by, a black dude, and then their whole life is destroyed. I agree that like education can be a way to change people's views, but that's like that's a very high level thing that not most people are going to go by like what is most visceral to them. So seeing like dramatic videos, hearing like big debates, like having big personal experiences, having somebody close in their life. Like I think depending on your proximity to these things, these are going to be the things that change your mind the most, and it can be for the better or for the worse.
Kevin was trying to get in there. I wanted to make
I've forgotten what I was going to say now. It doesn't really matter.
And not a good remember either, huh? Okay, fair enough. Shout out to the guy who's come on Destiny's stream earlier. I guess for my opinion, if I may interject, I know Origin hates it when I interject my opinion, but I'm going to anyway. I think that these are tools, debates specifically, that should be used hand in hand with other tools, right? So when I talk to people online, when I have these panels, I'm not usually doing it with the goal of convincing the person I'm talking to. I recognize that there are a lot of reasons why they're disincentivized to change their mind on this. There's a lot of things that go on in this space that kind of lock us in, audience capture, all these things. However, one of the things that I have noticed is that by interacting with another audience on these, often my arguments can plant seeds in the hearts of those who are listening, whether they be seeds for good or ill. This is a power, it's like any other tool, it could be used for good or evil, right? And their lived experiences and their other interactions that they have can water that seed and help it grow. And so while we may not see this sprout to fruition in a month or two, we may see it happen in a year or 3. There are times in my life I can think back to, right, where I was arguing with someone, was I debating with someone, not necessarily online, but there's some that happened online as well, where at the time I was unconvinced. But then my lived experiences helped me to kind of put into context those arguments which I remembered and change my mind on things. A good example of this, the Second Amendment. I used to be very much, I thought it was outdated. I thought it was something we should get rid of. I thought it was leading to too many bad outcomes. I was like very anti-Second Amendment. But over the course of months, if not years, and the conversations I've had both online and off, has convinced me and persuaded me, right? And online debates, watching online debates, has persuaded me that I'm fairly pro Second Amendment right now. So I guess, again, to the debate deniers, and I know you guys don't like that term, again, this is changing minds. It's changed my mind. Is my lived experience not valid?
Do you own a gun?
Yes, I do.
Did you purchase that since this shift?
Yes.
Do you use the gun?
Not usually, but I have it in case, right?
Like, do you go to the range or anything like that?
Not usually, no.
I mean, I guess, I'm not saying that people can't be persuaded at all. Like, that's a good example. But I guess my argument would be something akin to, how much time you spend online is probably directly proportional to how influential this stuff is. So if you're spending, and this is not meant as an attack, Wick, but it's going to come across that way. You're spending like an absurd amount of time online engaging in this stuff. It kind of stands to reason that you could be persuaded by it rather easily. And you might be persuaded to purchase a firearm even if you have no intention of ever using the firearm.
Well, this is... I remembered the point I was going to make, actually. Part of the danger, I think, of... And I think it goes to the point that a friend was just making there about people being too online with this stuff, is that I think one of the dangers of debate as like a tactic, as a advocacy method, is that, and this isn't necessarily even an individual's fault. I think it's an algorithm thing amongst other factors. I think actually political change often seems to be people becoming more extreme, going into more niche politics that they might not have otherwise, because of the online milieu being pretty toxic.
Or even like, well, this happens in real life too. Look at how many people are protesting the Israel-Palestine stuff who know nothing about the conflict, who say from river to sea, Palestine shall be free, without knowing what river to sea they're talking about. Like, these happen in real life areas, not online.
No, it's not just ignorance. It's people becoming extreme.
That's extreme. That's an extreme point of view as well. Yeah, how many people support Hamas, or how many people deny Israel's right to exist?
All right, chill the f out, dude. People becoming hived off from society was the kind of the path they're being pushed down. Whereas at the very least, the one thing a protest is a public forum. They're interacting with other human beings, and it's more difficult for it to be an echo chamber in that situation.
That's not true at all. Hold on, wait. The protesters are literally trying to keep people out that they don't. They literally locked themselves into a library.
And then the police come in and fucking beat the show. Like they're interacting with the real world around them.
Once they start breaking rules and laws,
people. It's just people.
I'm just saying that, like, the idea that
to argue the protest with you.
You don't have to argue the protest. I'm saying that a protest can be just as much an echo chamber as an online place, obviously.
Right, but they're interacting with the real world. They can't just... There's there's outside stimulus in a way that there isn't if it's just 12 borderline fucking neo-Nazis in a Discord chat.
I think, but
you know what I mean? Like,
you might have a higher chance of running into
stimuli there.
You might have a chance of running into other people, but there's also way more social pressure you can apply to get people to believe in just your thing as well in real life.
Yeah, I mean,
well, social pressure is one thing, but I mean, we're talking about like. I mean, Nazis grooming people, basically.
Okay, yeah. So, like, as an example, I went and I talked to some kids at UT. I talked to a guy who had a wonderful conversation with me, and then afterwards, everybody in this particular group shamed him so hard. He came back to talk to other people and say, "Don't talk to this guy. He's a pro-Zionist. He's going to clip you out of context." Like, and this guy sat alone for the next 2 hours in the middle of this place. Everybody was so ass mad at him. Like, yeah, people can apply this type of pressure in real life situations and in only online situations. In fact, I would say you're terminally online if you don't know that people can apply this pressure in real life. It absolutely happens.
I think the point here is that it is a lot easier to insulate yourself within online communities than it is within real life communities. Because even in the example you gave, if that group of people was more or less exclusively online rather than having been congregated in a particular place, that conversation between you and the other guy likely would never have happened. So the fact that he was even exposed to the ideas that you had, yes, the social pressure obviously had an impact, but the fact that he was even exposed to those ideas is, I think, an argument to say that internet spaces are far more isolated, generally speaking, than real life environments.
That can go either way, though. You can say that in an online environment, somebody could have a conversation like that and nobody else would even know, so they wouldn't be able to apply that social pressure. So they do have the freedom to explore more things without being harshly judged for it or pushed into a certain echo chamber.
I think in this context, I think the issue is the people who are more online, who focus in on these issues, are probably going to be a lot more insular, closed-minded, and are just going to be very zealous when it comes to if they see someone. What?
So you said the people who are online are going to be more zealous, more closed-minded was the word you used?
Yeah.
Why?
Or at least very zealous against the popular streamer or whoever it is they see they want to be defended. Because, like I mentioned earlier, when you watch certain people and you have a big audience, they're largely going to agree with a lot of the stuff you argue for, and they're going to be very outspoken to want to defend them in every context they see available. Like if you see, like Destiny, I haven't seen this, but I'm just going off of what you said, that you went to a university, you talked to a guy, you had a nice conversation, but then people went to him and said, "Oh, you don't need to talk to this guy. He's anti-Zionist. You need to like." That's what happened. You said, Destiny, like
basically pro-Zionist, but yeah.
Yeah. So the people who said that to him are most likely people who are aware of you online and focus on these online things. So they went to him and was like, "Don't listen to him. Don't talk with him." That's what I mean. Like it's a lot more zealous with the people who spend most of their time online paying attention. This versus someone who came to you open-mindedly and wanted to talk with you. So I see that from all these fan bases, whether it be your fan base, Hassan's fan base, even though I don't interact with him because I don't watch his stuff.
And I just wanted to address the response Destiny gave. You said that in an online space, you can have that sort of conversation and no one would ever know. The issue there is that when people engage in discussions online, when they do go outside their insular bubble, they tend to be more resistant to different ideas. When you look at places like Twitter, Facebook, even here on Twitch, people tend to be more resistant to opposing ideas, at least in part because they're being watched, but also there's a certain level of anonymity, whereas that face-to-face interaction forces you to let your guard down a little bit, because now you can see the face and the body language and the mannerisms of the person to whom you're talking, as opposed to just reading the text that someone wrote online. I think that there is a decent amount of evidence, at least anecdotally, to indicate that people tend to have better discussions when it is in person, face to face, than when it is anonymized via the internet.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think people online tend to be more radicalized. I just don't think it's necessarily because like one is online and one is in real life and one lends itself to like only echo chambers in real life that doesn't happen. I think there's huge problems in both areas where it can happen. And I don't think it's like unique to any particular space. Like there are examples where online, especially like in the early Tumblr days and stuff, like trans people or other types of LGBT people, if you live in a state where you don't have any of these other people around, being able to go online and find people like that to talk to is really nice because otherwise you'd have no way of doing it. And if people found out, you could be in huge trouble. And then in other cases, like online stuff we've all seen can be horrible in a ton of different ways. And then same thing with real life stuff as well. Like you can have a lot of interflow between different cultures and people interacting with each other, or you can have people at protests or in schools that are bullying each other to only believe in one thing. I don't think it's unique to a particular space.
Fair enough.
Okay. No, if you had a follow-up, please. Go ahead.
I want to go back to your gun thing. Okay,
Sure.
so you said you were persuaded by arguments in favor of guns.
At least in part, yes. That was a integral part of the persuasion process. It wasn't only that, obviously, but that was the hearing the arguments made and reading books about it and watching debates about this, both, again, and having conversations about this, both offline and on, changed my mind, yes.
I mean, the data shows that just owning a gun makes you less safe because you're more likely to use the gun on yourself, have it used against you in an armed robbery, or shoot a loved one than you are to ever use it in a defensive position. So, how was to me it seems like you
argument. If you're asking what persuaded me, what argument persuaded me, the idea of the ability to protect oneself and one's property, right, from those who might come against you, as well as, right, the fact that one of the first things a tyrannical government will do is to take away the guns of its populace. And that's one of the reasons, right, it's much harder back in the day for a black person to own a gun than a white person, right, like me, to own a gun, is because they didn't want these people to have these guns because they knew if they did, there'd be a possibility that they could resist the tyranny that was given. And I'll see your argument that, yes, there are cons to gun ownership. There absolutely are. But I think the pros, at least for me, outweigh the cons. But yeah,
I would encourage you to at least, go to the range because like the data shows if you are well practiced with a gun, go to a range.
Oh yeah, sure. If I'm more practiced, no, I agree with that. That's probably something I should do. It's just time and
range stream.
You need to be a well-regulated militia, motherfucker. Come on now.
One of these times. Okay, let me read the rest of these super chats. And then do you guys want to take callers for the last? We'll get to closing statements, and you guys want to take some callers till about 10? Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay, sweet. So yeah, if you're watching this and you want in, join my Discord, jump backstage.
Well, I would also wait before we do final. Just as a final call out, is there any? Because I hear there's so much, like I only do rhetoric, I only do sophistry, whatever. Is there a single like incorrect or single argument that doesn't seem believable? A single thing that, just one thing, because this impression is so strong. It's so interesting to me that it exists so strongly without any actual factual examples to back it up.
Once again, I feel like that's a straw man. That this impression is so strong of you, and also it seems very self-important.
I am important, thank you, and it is a strong impression. Thank you.
Any arguments? Anything?
I mean, I don't think every argument Destiny makes is sophistry. It wasn't even my statement, but I just feel like nobody's responding to it, so I should say something. But yeah, I mean, I think Destiny does research and all that kind of stuff and whatever. I just think it's the style of debate and discussion that it's not even so much the sophistry. It just gets into like insults and bullshit. And, I understand that that's entertaining. Like there are times where that's very entertaining and whatever. But I just don't think it's very useful in persuading like most importantly, maybe normal people. It's funny for us like online people to watch and giggle about and whatever, including me, but I don't think it's persuasive at all and whatever. But in terms of like fallacious arguments and all that and not having enough information, and I don't know, I mean, I think everybody who engages in debates has probably made fallacious arguments, used rhetoric, not had enough data to back up their points, all that shit.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me get through these super chats so we'll get to closings, because again, unless someone has an answer for Destiny's question here, I don't know where else to go from here. Okay, $10 from Justice35. How can Kevin Logan attack Destiny but not give any fact of the matter knowledge on Israel-Palestine or does he just repeat lefty talking points?
Yeah, I just repeat lefty talking.
Thank you
points.
for the
Move on.
$10.
Well, I'll chime
$5.
in and I'll say that like Destiny made a comment about like all the rockets coming from Hamas, but like the number of rockets coming from Israel, the number of attacks on Gaza from Israel far outnumber the supposed rockets coming from Hamas. So why is one more important than the other?
Do you want an answer to that?
Go ahead if you want to answer it.
Sure. Every single rocket launch from the Gaza Strip into Israel is by definition breaking international law because the rockets are unguided, and the purpose of firing those rockets is to terrorize the population, not to secure any sort of military advantage. And almost every single one of those rocket attacks have happened outside of any sort of established armed conflict. So regardless
what about
of
all the violations of international law that Israel has committed,
which ones?
Killing doctors and journalists.
Killing a doctor or killing a journalist is not necessarily a violation of international law. It would depend on the circumstances.
No, they were targeted. Abu Akleh was targeted.
We can, I don't want to get too deep into the Israel-Palestine debate. That is beyond
We don't have
scope.
to. Do you acknowledge
Right.
that every single rocket that Hamas has fired into the territory of Israel indiscriminately is a violation of international law?
I don't, because I believe that there is a caveat for people who are oppressed.
Okay, there's not.
Is there not?
There is no caveat to indiscriminately attack civilian populations, but it's interesting that you think so.
When you are being held in an open air prison, how you rebel is taken into account, I do believe, but I'm not that familiar with it.
Okay. Do you think you can rape somebody who's oppressing you? Is that defended?
No.
Okay. But you think you can kill them?
Well, if you're fighting back against your oppressor, yes.
Is a civilian an oppressor?
A civilian in Israel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. International law
Okay.
disagrees with you, but thanks for the analysis.
Fair enough. Let's get through these. $5 in Seattle. I have converted many people like Ancom SciCom to my position. Too bad nuclear is a boring topic. Thank you for $5.
To be fair, I actually corrected him there. I was already pro-nuclear before I met him, but we did bond over that fact.
Well, I'm glad you had some bonding experience. $5 from Tachyon Blue to say, in my research I found that pluralism is the solution. We need to have conversations with one another. As Destiny pointed out, debate is just one part of the political process, but it is an important one. I would love to talk with Destiny at some point about my research. Thank you for the $5. You'll have to talk to Destiny about that. I can't. I'm not his booker. $2 from Bobby Johnson. Easy Destiny win. $2 from Zach. 5v1 and this is the best you can do. Ouch. $2 from Justice 35. Amazing. My super predicted. Massive Kevin L. $5 from Antonio Cunningham. Thanks for hosting this week. Even if I suck at debates, I still think they're a net good. It's a great way to share information. Thank you for $5. Thank you for the compliment. $10 from Jack's Wasted Life to say Destiny research on January 6th changed my mind on Trump. Biden 2020. Ugh. Biden 2020, like that's gone. I think you mean 2024, but fair enough. $5 from Darasum Skira. Obviously, cracker can be a racial slur. Get the fuck out of here. Thank you for the $5. $10 from Durr. Destiny recently said Palestinian prisoners aren't a fair exchange of hostages. Are you aware? Thousands of prisoners held without charges or trials for years, according to the BBC, NPR. And does this change your position? Does it change your position?
I don't believe I said that. I said that a prisoner is not a hostage. You wouldn't consider that like a hostage. They might be unfairly detained or people might be arrested. You can argue for reasons that are unfair without due process, but you wouldn't consider them hostages.
Fair enough. $50 from Lawson Harrison. I think the forming relationships was a good point. What are the panelists' thoughts on Daryl Davis? Any thoughts?
That's the guy that converts KKK members,
Yep,
right?
goes in and befriends them and persuades them, allegedly at least.
I feel that it shouldn't be his responsibility to have to do that, and that we as a society should have long since nipped it in the bud. Like,
Okay.
Nipped it in the bud, how?
that's not for me. Like, it's weird that he has to go and convert white supremacists, you know?
I mean, it's
Like-
weird that we have soup kitchens for homeless people, but that's not really answering the question of should soup kitchens or Daryl Davis exist, or were they doing good?
I mean, clearly he's doing good, but like, he shouldn't have to be in that position. People in a minority group shouldn't have to defend themselves and fight for representation.
You should write a letter
what
to him. I
he-
bet he'd be in tears that you're taking so much pity on him. Thank you.
Okay.
And my thing, once again, that's another straw man. Like, you are ascribing things to people.
No one is describing. You ask
I
me, like,
just
is
say-
somebody doing a
wait.
good thing, or do you think we swear this? He's like, well, he shouldn't have to. This poor black man, he shouldn't have to do this. Like, but it's not the question. Nobody cares.
I just think if Daryl Davis was an online debater, he wouldn't convert anybody to do anything.
Maybe not. $2 from DJ Addy Pupils. Wick, tell Destiny I said hi. $5 from Lost in the Sea. Kevin's name fits well. And $2 from Jack Wasted Life. I meant Biden 2024. I know that, buddy. Thank you. Gang, we're going to give each of these lovely individuals. And first of all, I want to thank all of you for being willing to come on. There are a lot of people I invited on this who just didn't have the stones to come on and, actually confront Destiny on his takes. They were content to talk shit from the sidelines, the peanut gallery, if you will. So each and every one of you who are willing to come on is a cut above, in my opinion. So thank you for being here. I want to give each of you concise, please, because we got a lot of callers backstage. I want to get to as many as we can. Concise closing statements. Tell people where they can find you. We're going to start with Incom, and we're going to end with Destiny. Incom, go ahead.
You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, all the various social medias at IncomSciCom. That's about it.
Oh, no closing statement? Fair enough. Let's go. Kevin Logan, thoughts?
Firstly, is it okay if I dip out before the calls? Because it is like nearly 3
I
in
get
the
you.
morning. I am very tired.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Final.
You're not in prison.
thought.
This isn't an open air prison, okay?
No, but I don't want to be rude and just like drop out or something. That'd be awful. Final thoughts. Yeah. I don't think debate is particularly it's online debate anyway is particularly efficacious. It's a part of a much larger political discussion, but so is people talking in a pub or whatever. I don't think it's particularly effective. It's largely entertainment. I think the term kayfabe from wrestling springs to mind. It's just entertainment for the most part, and people who have a financial vested interest in telling you how efficacious it is, should be side-eyed, frankly. But anyway, that's enough about Wick. I'm joking. I'm playing. Yeah, and thank you for having me on. You can find me at KFLogan1875 on Twitch or Kevin Logan on YouTube. Much love.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Non-smoker, go ahead.
We can not kill
Yeah. Twitch.tv/non-smoker, non_smoker. Yeah, I mean, I think online debates are silly, dumb, and a total waste of time. And with that said, if anyone would like to have an online debate with me at any point, I'd be happy to welcome you to do so.
Well, thank you. And gang, check them out. Appreciate you. Origin, what you got?
All right. Online debates are pointless most of the time. The vast majority of them are peopled with unlettered laymen who haven't procured the necessary education to accurately discuss the highly specialized and complex political and social topics constantly addressed in these spaces. It doesn't help any audience or viewer to fully grasp the intricacies of these issues when they're going off the words of other laymen. And this especially doesn't help when the most popular streamers garner the most zealous and outspoken fans who merely regurgitate everything said streamer confidently spews. So simply stated, online debate is a gyre of regular people just repeating the biases and presuppositions of regular people. And my name is Origin of Logos. That's my YouTube channel name, and that's pretty much it.
Those fucking commoners always talking, yap, and all those unlettered swine. Let them eat cake, right? Well, thank you for being here, Origin. Really appreciate you. Justin, freaking, what do you got?
Wick, thank you for having me on. I've been riding your balls for weeks, months now, and I respect the fact that you reached out to me and had me on. I do want to point out, like, I didn't even know what the setup was until a couple of hours ago, and it was yesterday when you asked me. This would have been much better content for you if you had a bunch of Destiny hate watchers that were more familiar with, and could give you good examples, and I couldn't really fill that spot for you, so I apologize for that. I'm Justin Freakin on all the social medias, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. Just Justin Freakin. You'll find me.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. And last but not least, final thoughts from Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that say that the online debates are bad because they involve laymen that do little to no research, or they'll say that the people involved are only engaged in sophistry, or they'll say that the debates are ultimately not persuasive, so it doesn't matter. And I feel like there may be arguments that could be made that further any of those 3 points, but the reality is all of the people that make those points are guilty of every single thing they accuse online debaters of and more. So for instance, I have never had a persuasive person run through a debate of mine and say, hey, because this guy engaged in poor debate research, he was wrong on X, Y, and Z points. This basically never happens. All of the same follies that befall online debaters also befall online video essayists. They also befall academics. They also befall politicians. They impact literally every single person that participates in any kind of persuasive anything throughout all of society and in all of history. It's just endemic to having debates with people or arguments with people. Sometimes one side does less research than the other. I also notice that the people that say that debates aren't good because the people engage in sophistry all the time themselves always engage in sophistry without fail. Every single time I confront somebody saying like, oh, you think that online debaters only do sophistry? Can you give me an example? They then engage in sophistry. It happens every single time. You can choose to engage in sophistry, or you can choose to engage in rational, logically coherent arguments. It's up to you. You can do this in debate or outside of debate. And when people say they aren't persuasive, literally nobody believes this, because the exact same people that claim that debates aren't persuasive all said that my entire audience and everybody else will be turned into Nazis if I have Nick Fuentes on my stream eating waffles for an hour. So clearly somebody's being persuaded, or at least people are worried about them being persuaded. And we see that people were persuaded because things like the Donald on Reddit or the politics board on 4chan led directly to things like, Charlottesville. And we saw that things like the online, left movement led to things like the BLM protests. And we see that things like QAnon and everything online and Donald Trump's social media accounts led to January 6th. So I think that people argue in different places, and as we said earlier, it's part of a larger political thing, including activism or voting or politicians speaking to each other or nations taking actions, whatever. Like, all of it serves its purpose. All of it has a role. All of it can be done well. All of it can be done shittily. If you don't like the way that it's done, then encourage for ways to do it better, rather than pretending that people won't do it at all.
Well, thank you for being here. People can find them at YouTube. Just type Destiny into the YouTube search bar. I'm sure you'll find them. Gang, this has been great. Remember, if you want me to do more of this, you have to like the stream. You have to subscribe to the channel. You have to give me money so I can continue to do more of this. I like money. Keep giving it to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I will say you were a good moderator, Wick. I've enjoyed this.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it.
On that note, I'm gonna go to bed, everybody.
If you guys wouldn't mind, the rest of you though wouldn't mind staying for at least another 10 minutes. I do have a few callers that might be interesting.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, let's bring them on. I'll do one at a time, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. We won't take too much time. I want to respect everyone's time here, but I think it would be interesting content. So we're going to do that. I'll pull in, and I think the order that they arrived, this won't be perfect. Don't yell at me. You're live. What do you got?
Oh, Rob wasn't first.
Oh, it's me?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Let me mute the stream. Hey, what's up, everyone?
Okay.
What up, Rob? How are you?
Doing good. Threw in a super chat making fun of all the anti-Destiny people here. I just think most of you aren't that good at debate, and that's what the sour grapes are. But to be serious about it, a couple things, because I know there's a lot of people. I think the whole conversation about this sort of online echo chamber thing sort of misses the mark, because that would be existing with or without the debate community. So let's just take Destiny's community as an example. I'm a right-winger. I go on and debate Destiny, and even though the vast majority of his audience isn't going to agree with me or like my point of view, I have a better chance of talking to his audience than I would someone that doesn't debate people like me, like Hassan. So you have all of these, and I'm sure it exists on the right as well, but the bigger streamers are left-wing streamers that don't want to have any interaction with anyone of skill or talent or expertise that's on the other side of the debate sphere than them. And so the argument that Non-Smoker was making, it was like, well, the problem is that it's sort of touch grass and be out in the real world. Of course, no one should terminally be online, but all of that stuff's even more of a problem in communities that do online stuff but don't debate. When you go back and you look at like the right-wing sphere of the 2014, 2015, when you had the Milo Yiannopoulos or the Sargon of Akkad's, before they were doing debates, it was more of an echo chamber than when they started debating people that actually had views that differed for them. And the other thing I'll say real quick, and then if Wick wants to keep me on to respond to people, is I think that you're also missing the point when you talk about persuadability and what type of things are more persuadable. I think as a one-to-one thing, of course, an individual conversation with someone will be more persuadable. But when persuading large audiences, I think the proof's in the pudding. The fact that you have people like Destiny that has such a big audience and that his audience, as he would admit, a lot of times will go along with what he says, shows that him going out and debating people has helped grow his audience exponentially and has helped persuade people. And the other thing is, it's not just about persuading them. A lot of the criticisms that people are making here about sophistry and thing, I'm sorry, I've debated some of you. You're far worse offenders than the people you claim are debate bros. And it seems like you're just projecting what you believe upon other people.
I'm going to have to let them respond.
I will, real quick. I'll finish real quick, I promise. I can't speak for Destiny, but I'll say this. I absolutely have engaged in sophistry. I'm not perfect. I've been petty. I've been an asshole. All of that's true. But when I debate someone who's actually interested in facts and actually having a good conversation, very rarely does it devolve into just name calling and stuff like that. I've debated Destiny many times. WhickTV verified last night. I debated an economist named Noah Smith. There wasn't like name calling and stuff. It was a substantive conversation. So I think a lot of this is just sour grapes of people projecting their own bullshit onto people like Destiny. And yeah, you're right. When you debate him or you debate me and you come with sophist bullshit, then yeah, we're going to make fun of you and come back with you and reciprocate that same energy.
Okay, responses to Rob before we let him go.
I mean, just on the point he made on my argument in particular, like if he's trying to say that, you know, Hassan's community is stupid, and, you know, they're insular and so they're not persuasive either. I mean, I'm fine saying that too. I think all the online political sphere could be grouped into a lot of the arguments that I made. Yeah.
And Rob, I would recommend you be more specific on who you're addressing in here when you said about the people in here talking about sophistry, because the way you framed it is if we were all arguing for that when it was just, I think, Kevin Logan and what was it? What's your name again, Justin? I think it was just you two that were doing that. Yeah.
Those are the two I'm talking about.
Really
Those are the two I've debated before.
Yeah, you should specify that instead of, because the way you framed it was as if it was all of us doing that, which that's another issue when we debate people in these areas and we make broad assertions. Be sure to specify that.
I will, but let me say this. Like, I think a lot of this is coming off as a little.
We gotta.
Okay, it comes off as a little snowflakey. I mean, come on, there has to be some sort of entertainment value for anyone to want to be educated, and a lot of this is just like kind of pissing in the wind. Like, who gives a shit? Yeah, okay, I didn't say these specific two people, and that's sort of indicative of a lot of these criticisms I've heard of Destiny the whole time. When he asked for specific things that he does that are objectionable, I'm hearing very little. Just because he's someone who could be fired up and be entertaining, while at the same time having opinions that he thinks, you know, are correct. He even, like, both me and him and anyone who's worth their salt probably enjoy these debates and we learn from them. And that's the other thing. It's not just about educating an audience. It's about educating myself. And when I get educated more, if I'm able to influence people, well, that influence will be better and more correct if I'm educating myself more. It's just like boxing. Like, you could train on a heavy bag all day, but you're going to learn more from actually engaging in a boxing match. That makes you a better person. The same is true with intellectual debating and sparring.
Just one thing before I let you go. I think that to piggyback off that, a lot of the talking points you see in protests, right, and a lot of talking points that they use on media and television and CNN and stuff, a lot of them are workshopped, right, based on arguments and debates, right? Maybe not online ones, but people testing their ideas against each other, figuring out which talking points are more persuasive, which talking points have less ways to attack them. These things matter just from a training perspective, I guess. But thank you for calling in, Rob.
Thanks, Wick. Yep, fun as always.
I just want to address that, like, I couldn't bring any examples of Destiny because I don't know anything about Destiny. I was just invited on here yesterday and was hey, to talk about debate. I didn't know it was specifically supposed to be, you know, bringing receipts on Destiny. I might have done a little different research.
You did take shots at him about the cookie thing, right?
I did. That's the only clip I've ever seen of him, really. Okay. So, but I do want to say I do not piss in the wind. I would rather piss in Dan Crenshaw's open eye hole. Give me that eye pussy, Representative.
Caller, you're live. Go ahead. What do you got? Make it brief.
Hey guys. So I was just kind of like wondering what the point is of this particular conversation if we're going to be having the position that debate doesn't actually do anything, then why debate whether or not debate actually does anything?
Like the lulz.
It's entertainment.
Is that really it?
Yes.
And you're doing it I mean, not to be entirely offensive to Wick here, but you're doing it on Wick's channel of all channels?
That's what Wick
Well,
wanted.
He asked all of us to come on to talk about this, so
What do
And
you
why- well,
mean?
why did you
It's
accept?
doing it on Wick's channel of all channels.
I'm
My
just
channel's
saying,
great.
Because I'm a
that-
shit stirrer, son.
I'm just saying that Destiny's channel is a bit bigger, and they can potentially get more attention there. I'm just saying.
Well, I'll say for me, one, Wick asked me if I'd be interested in this, so I agreed. And second, the topic itself is, are online debates like pointless? Do they matter? So I don't think you have to be necessarily an expert in, like, I don't think there's such a thing as like I don't think there's such a field as like you learn how to be an expert in debate as like I don't think there's a degree for that. So I don't think that necessarily fits
Philosophy.
in this context. Well, I mean, philosophy is not just about debate. That's like one little area. Like mostly philosophy is broken up in like metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, like
all of those are
ontology,
debated,
those
by the
kind
way,
of
hardcore in philosophy.
Of course,
This
yeah,
isn't
I
a-
agree.
It's like one of the
But
main
that's-
things that philosophy does. Is they write papers to each
Okay,
other saying you're
so-
wrong.
Of course, but that's not like the main thing of philosophy. It's not like it's called debate and that's it. Like debate can be anything, so that's why.
Well, that's
Okay,
where you
so I
learn
think
logic
the
and practical
format-
reasoning and stuff.
I think the format also matters. Like having a debate within academic literature is going to be a very different format and have very different results than something like this, where we're all on an internet stream and just more or less casually talking to one another. Now, yes,
Exactly.
some people may be able to bring better facts, better rhetoric, etc. But I think it's not going to be as impactful as something like the field of scientific or philosophical debate being had in literature, where it's something that everyone can see, almost everyone can contribute to, and it actually does help find a consensus. Very rarely do you end up with the sort of shit slinging competitions that I tend to see on Twitch debates in academia.
Hold on, what?
Then you have not been paying attention.
Do we?
Not to say they don't happen, but
Are
it's,
you
it's
talking
far
like
less common.
this idea? Okay. In academia, they go at each other all the time, right?
They have their own academic ways of insulting each other.
Yes.
Like it's
may not
it's a whole
understand it,
language.
but they definitely have huge issues, huge discrepancies, huge debates, and hate each other in a lot of ways that are on different sides. But is
Yeah.
there anything else from the caller?
yes,
Because
there
I
is-
do want to make sure that we.
There is one other.
You have a
thing.
sexy
not
voice,
online.
my man.
Thank you. I am a voice actor, so that makes sense. Thank you very much. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to
Last thing,
ask is...
And those guns.
Sorry, last thing. Sorry. The last thing I wanted to ask was, do you think that when it comes to debate, that it has to be like one or nothing? Like, can debate not simply be one part of a greater whole of people changing their minds and being persuaded in various different directions? Is that not also like a valid way to look at it, instead of saying that either it changes people's minds or it doesn't? Is that not a better way to look at it?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, it just depends
I
on,
guess.
like I said, how you. It depends on who is leading the debate, who's making it, like who's streaming it, and who's providing the guests, and how they pick their guests, and what the topics are. I would say it all depends on context and how you structure it. So if you're talking about a very serious issue, a very complex philosophical debate, you should probably have actual scholars and philosophers who know their stuff talking about this, and not just some random people. Whereas it's just a fun, silly topic, then you can just have anybody on for fun. So it just depends.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling in, dear sir.
Thank you for having me on.
See you later. Probably one more caller, and then we're going to call it quits, gang, because I got a new puppy that I need to take care of. And
Can we see Puppy on stream?
Where is Lola? Lola? Are you
What kind of
around?
puppy? Out of curiosity.
It's a rescue puppy. I got her recently. She's part poodle, part something else. But let me bring on one more caller.
Even
while
more
I look
respect for
her.
you than Wick.
Yeah, you're
Now
welcome.
let's do three. We'll make
No,
them
we'll do
quick.
one because then I have to go. Okay.
I understand, Puppy.
Rashad, you're live. Come on, buddy. Undeafen. See that you're here. You're deafened. You're muted. You gotta undo that. It's on your end, buddy.
Well, if he's deafened, he can't hear
Rashad,
you.
my
Okay,
man.
okay, there we go. Diversity. You gotta let the black. You know what I'm saying? Diversity for diversity's sake.
About time. All these crackers on this stream.
Whoa, 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 whoa. So I wanted to talk about, if debate does nothing, I'm genuinely curious as to what the alternative is. Because as I'm seeing, as I'm seeing echo chambers kind of dig deeper, misinformation spreading and stuff like that, I'm genuinely curious as to what the alternative is actually going to be for solving these issues, like solving these disagreements. If we're not debating, I don't see any other alternative. I've heard people say mockeries like a tactic we can use, which I don't see how people are going to actually like change their mind or actually want to hear from the opposite side. I mean, we tried mockery with conservatives. We tried censorship with conservatives. We've literally thrown every single tactic of the book at them, and none of them have worked at all. I'm genuinely curious as to what the alternative is.
The problem with right-wingers is they don't feel embarrassment.
I mean, do you think that... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you think that people generally are more or less politically polarized than they were like 10 years ago?
I'd say they're more nowadays.
Yeah, and so I guess my response to your point would be like, I don't think that online debates are responsible for that, but I also think that we have seen a massive proliferation in online debate culture, and it's done almost nothing to resolve differences between people.
How do we know? How do we even measure that? That's
Yeah,
such a weirdly
like
absolutist statement.
I can't measure it, but that's why I asked if you feel that we're more or less polarized than we were 10 years ago.
Well, that's why I brought up the fact that we've done nothing. Like we've literally tried nothing else. Like debate is literally the only humanizing option I can think of, especially since nowadays. I mean, the whole narrative was liberals never want to debate. Liberals always run. Then we have a guy like Destiny show up and debate literally everyone in sight, which I would say has done a pretty good job of humanizing the left. Because I'd say for the majority of the time, we've kind of been this big horde of BLM, trans, this. XYZ, anti-white, and now like we have someone who's debating everybody and is generally a normal dude, not really all that radical. I'd say that in a hyper politicized and hyper polarized space that we're currently in right now, I'd say that debate is really the best thing we can ask for, because we have misinformation about Ukraine spreading and all this other shit. And if no one's coming in and saying, hey, I'll debate you on the facts and I'll actually call you out man to man, one to one, point by point, I can't think of a better alternative that humanizes both sides, unless you can bring something up.
Give him a chance.
No, I actually think that's a valid point. My argument would be, okay, then there's a problem with the way that we're doing debate, because it doesn't seem to be resolving the differences between people.
But I mean, we're only just getting started, like, generally speaking. I mean, most debates on CNN are like, 5 minutes long, like 15 minutes long. Nobody really gets to get their point out. But as far as I can tell, this debate's gone on like maybe like 2 hours.
On what was just said, I super agree with what the teacher, what was her name? No.
Non-smoker?
Non-smoker. Non-smoker. Yeah. I super agree with the non-smoker said that the focus should be on fixing the debates. Because like I think that anybody that honestly agrees, or anybody that honestly participates in this agrees that most of them are dog shit. Like people ask me like, oh, you do online debate, what are the good debates about? I'm like, I don't know, there's like 2 in like 10 years. They're absolutely fucking horrible. But the problem is that the people that call them absolutely fucking horrible contribute to their horribleness, and like contribute to like the overall degradation of the environment of even being able to have any good debates. Not to be personal, but I will, because I'm a huge online debater, is like if I look, for instance, after my huge debate with Finkelstein, every single person on the left celebrated his conduct in that debate, despite the fact that it was some of the most deplorable debate behavior that I've ever seen literally my entire life. It was fucking embarrassing.
Mr. Borelli.
Yeah.
Which is another point, like the worship of like fucking appeal to authority.
Yeah,
How many
exactly.
fucking PhD bums have we seen get torn up in debates? I mean, we saw fucking Peterson sit there and say, Destiny has this need to be right. But if you watch the debate, Peterson comes out guns fucking blazing in the first 15 minutes. It kind of reeks of like confrontation shock, if you ask me, which is another barrier that needs to be broken down. This like cocksucking of PhDs and fucking paperwork. If you can't debate your points, like what's really the point of you being in the conversation?
I will say the behavior of people like Finkelstein and Peterson in that sort of way is also kind of odd. I think they're trying to adapt to this type of online debate, like how people interact in these areas, and that's why they'll come up like
No, wait. Hold on, wait.
That's the norm.
Wait, that I would slaughter whole villages of people if I could get even an ounce of that level of charity, that for a scholared, well-educated man to step into a conversation and like an absolute fucking toddler screech ad homs for 5.5 hours, for me to do that and somebody to describe it, well, that behavior by Destiny was kind of odd. It wasn't kind of odd. It was fucking humiliating and fucking embarrassing. Like, that's the kind of performance that if you have that against somebody who is self-admittedly a Wikipedia retard, you should kill yourself. How fucking stupid would you have to be to take 4 decades, supposedly, of academia and scholarship and walk into that debate and come away looking like the lesser man? That's unbelievable to me. To have that described as like kind of odd, that is wild. That was like an embarrassing performance, but that was just my perspective.
Okay, last point from Rashad, but then Not So Erudite has bullied me to come on, and I guess we'll do one more. So we'll get Not So Erudite as our closing statement. Rashad, last point. Last thought.
Oh, no point. Y'all are doing great. I'll be out.
Rashad's cool. Rashad is a regular Wicker. Okay, he comes on and he debates on my show all the time. So if you liked him, right, tune in to more of me and tune into him. He has a great show, Tanner. So see you later. Okay, and last but certainly not least. You're live. What you got?
All right. First of all, I did not bully you to get on. That's fucking
totally true. Totally true. Not there.
I'm just super curious, Justin. Okay.
Hey, what's up? I wouldn't be mad at you if you did bully to get on. That's how I got on here.
Okay. I'm super curious your thoughts on therapy. Do you think that CBT therapy is an effective method for treating like mental health?
CBD therapy? Is that what you said?
CBT, yeah, cognitive
behavioral therapy. Yeah,
I don't know anything about therapy. I don't I self-medicate with marijuana, and I'm not in that world, so that's not my area of expertise.
Sure, I'm not asking for your like expert weigh-in. I'm just asking if you broadly would guess that therapy is effective.
Therapy is a good thing for people. Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Non-smoker, I'm curious if you'd have a similar answer. Do you think CBT works?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think CBT has been demonstrated using evidence that it is effective.
Yeah, but there's also other therapeutic methodologies that work really well, too, that are different from CBT, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so wouldn't it be reasonable to conclude CBT kind of uses, like, thought challenges, and there's an element of essentially, like, an ideological wrestling that, like, occurs between you and your therapist, where your therapist is constantly trying to outline errors in thinkings. This is especially common in CBT's predecessor, which is called rational motive behavioral therapy, where there's this kind of more wrestling. They try to really challenge you on your different thoughts, which is highly effective. But some people fucking hate CBT, and they do a lot better with things like ACT therapy or other forms of therapy. And so I feel like when you just assume that debate isn't effective, you're just essentially saying that, like, these pants don't fit me, so they can't fit anybody else.
Yeah, so let me respond by saying this. I totally agree, different strokes for different folks, right? Second to that, if my therapist ever acted like an online debater, I would kill myself.
So I don't know why you would say that. I'm saying that a therapist would act like an online debater. Like,
I can dim all this suicide talk.
I mean, I think my point is more that, like, there's nothing wrong with the idea of challenging someone's perspective. I thought you were trying to compare CBT to debating because it involves like the clashing of perspectives or something like that. I don't know if that's where you were going, but I'm not against debate. It's just the way that we do it online. It's a major fucking disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be the first one to agree with you that, like, most of the people that come into debate online particularly are bad faith actors that broadly tend to be, like, decently uninformed. The issue is that, like, that doesn't matter. I'm comparing it to CBT because the wrestling does seem to work for some people. However, if there's anything, for example, this thing has been really effective at showing me that, like, you should probably just, like, own your positions and, like, not be a pussy about things. Like, these are really good things to learn. If you watch, like, other debates, for example, from Norm Finkelstein, it makes you go, oh, well, just because somebody's an academic, it doesn't actually mean that they're, like, knowledgeable, respectable, or worth listening to. I think the same thing is what a lot of people have learned from watching Jordan Peterson. And so just because not all debates are perfect and the greatest example of Socratic dialogue, it doesn't mean it's ineffective. Do you know Chris Hitchens?
Yeah, I know Christopher Hitchens. Not to divert or take you away from your point, I think the problem I have is that a vast majority of the debates are ineffective.
Yeah, sure. I would agree that the vast majority of them are ineffective, but just like the vast majority of philosophy papers that are written probably don't amount to much. Most academic papers get like 3 citations and then fade into the things. Like, of course this is true, but this is the true for all things. This isn't unique about debate. So it feels like what you're doing is like you participate in a lot of like low energy, kind of low quality debate. And therefore, again, you say, well, my pants aren't very effective, so they can't ever be effective anywhere else, which is like this really weird projection of your success versus like, if you look at like Chris Hitchens' entire fucking career, it's obvious that online debate specifically was hugely effective at boosting the entire skeptic movement and blasting young Earth creationists dominantly off of the internet through mostly online debate.
Well, he was doing more of a formal debate thing pre-debate bro internet. They were aired on YouTube, yes, but
sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that being aired on YouTube was part of the benefit? That it went so far and so wide?
Well, sure, but they were still formal debates.
So are you saying,
yeah.
so now it's just wholly different from anything that's done online because it's structured in a university hall?
Well, it's structured. That makes a big difference. I think this has been somewhat more productive because Wick has been an effective moderator. And so there is structure here.
Okay, I feel like you didn't watch a Chris Hitchens debate if you feel like they're just like these, like there's nothing.
I have read all his books, ma'am.
I didn't.
I know you're trying to come in here and come in with a hitch slap.
I didn't say you haven't read his books. I said that you haven't watched his debates. If your takeaway is that they're just so different from online debates, like this obviously isn't true.
They're formal structured debates.
Okay.
Kind of.
Well,
Are they, have I seen?
I don't know. Yeah, I
debates
think
than
we're gonna
you?
circle the drain, and I do have to go. Gang, thank you.
I want to see the
for
puppy before you
all
go.
I can't find her, and I'd have to leave. I don't want you guys staring at my blank screen. It feel weird, right?
I want to see the
I'll
dog.
entertain everyone.
Well, pictures in Discord. There
There are
all.
pictures in Discord. There'll be pictures on Twitter. And if you tune into my channel on Friday, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, when I am debating Josiah from Pondering Politics and Econoboy alongside Lactoid, right? And we're going to be talking about the Alito flag situation. I think people are making this into something way bigger than it is. I think that Supreme Court justices should be able, and their families should be able to have political opinions and speak on those opinions and not have to be disbarred, right, from Supreme Court. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. Tune in, 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. Wave bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that's it. Thanks for coming, gang. I really hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Later, guys.
Destiny, I have a question, Destiny.
Yeah, what's up?
What are those books on your shelf? Because I noticed there's books, and I'm a big reader, and I was just curious if you know what they are.
Almost all of them are related to like Israel Palestine. I think the last one I put up there was a book by Avi Schleim called The Lion of Jordan. Obviously, one of the first ones I read on the conflict was the Scars of War, Wounds of Peace by Shlomo Ben-Ami. I think I've got The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine is up there. I haven't read too much of that one. It's by Ilan Pape. Obviously, for Betty Morris, I've got, I think, Righteous Victims. I think it's The Birth of the Palestinian Refugee Problem, and I think 1948 are the three of his I've got. And then I think I've got Norm's fucking the Gaza one, An Inquest into Its Martyrdom. And then I've got two I just bought recently for World War I, which is The Sleepwalkers, and then another one called The War That Ended Peace by Margaret Macmillan, I think.
You should look into Finkelstein's book Beyond Chutzpah if you already don't have that one. It's a pretty good one, and I'm glad you're actually reading into that stuff because that's very complicated. That's some of the most complicated stuff that can be addressed, especially ever since the October 7th thing. But I thought it was weird how a lot of that debate was about finding problems with you when I didn't think that was the debate topic. It was just about if debates matter. So
yeah,
it was a bit odd.
Well, I mean, I think it's. I mean, I've become the focal point at which all this is analyzed. It's just annoying to me that people have people have issues with straw man versions that are created of me and then have very strong opinions about them online. You might not have, by the way. I don't know if you did. I associate so Kevin and that one guy on the top right. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I may have issues with you on any sort of political assessment you have, but I don't. I used to watch you a lot more a few years ago, but I actually don't really watch too many streamers these days. The only one I typically watch now is Wick, just because I respect what he does. And the only reason I take part in these political servers anyway is not because I have any hope of changing people's mind. I don't have that whatsoever. I take part in these online servers because I understand that a lot of the upcoming generations are getting their information through these online places, whether it be Discord, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. And so if I'm going to be honest about what people believe, I have to be in the areas where a lot of people are engaging. So I'm doing this as a curiosity thing, because I don't want to be dishonest with how interacting with people on these issues, because it's getting bigger. People aren't really engaging in the real world as often. So I feel it'd be dishonest if I talk about this stuff, or if I wanted to learn about it but not engage in the online spaces.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, a lot of people believe a lot of crazy shit they learn, like Joe Rogan and shit. So it's worth it to pay attention to it, I think, if that's what you engage in.
Yeah, I'm mostly into philosophy and religion, but I actually want to go to graduate school at some point to actually learn about it in an academic environment, which is why I kind of have that bias. I would say it's a bias, but it's something I think should be taken a little bit more seriously in these online spaces, that if people are going to discuss really complex, intricate issues, they need to be at least trying to be well read and learned in those areas before they try to come off and be shooting off at the hip and be very... the way effectiveness is working these days is just bleak from how I see it, because it's all just tribal. A lot of it from like the fans of any sort of big audience, it's always going to be mostly tribal.
Yeah, I don't disagree,
zealous.
but I feel like this tribalism and zealousness is pushed most by people that are more critical. That's the frustrating part. Like I said, there are parts of my opinion that are incorrect, and then they get updated and corrected, but almost always it's because of pushback within my own community. I can't trust any like lefty community that audits any debate I have to give me any good pushback on anything, because it's all delusional, like the caricatures of the arguments that I believe in. Like, do I think that people are shoving Oreos into rocket fuel mixtures to make them go boom? Like, that's obviously, it's a caricature of a position. Or the idea that I think that like the N-word is okay, it's okay to call people the N-word, but it's never okay to say the word cracker. Like, that's obviously a ridiculous position. So if there was to be pushback against any ideas I have here, of which there can be, like, I'm not going to find it in any of these communities. And these are the same communities that'll say like debate is worthless. So it's frustrating. It's like, okay, well.
Yeah, and that's what in my final statement, which that was my opening statement. I don't know if you could probably tell just by how I was reading it. We didn't get the opening statement, but that issue of where was I about to go with that? Oh yeah, I was going to say how with these issues and how we consider effectiveness and how we influence people and how debates can be effective. And this is why when I've been talking with you the entire time in the panel, I don't know if you noticed this, but every time I tried to address you, I tried to be as understanding, as considerate as possible, because unlike Kevin Logan, who he's just another part of this issue, and you pointed it out as well, is that he says it's all about dunking and that's all people want to do, but that was all he was actually doing with you. He was just trying to get a dunk on you, instead of actually engaging with you honestly. And I'm just sitting here just wanting to bang my head against the wall, because he's doing exactly the opposite of what he says he's against. And if you're going to be for that, at least imbibe it, live it, but he's not doing it.
Yeah, I obviously I don't disagree, but yeah, okay. I gotta take off soon because it's already fucking past my off stream time. So thanks for the conversation.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a good night.
Good luck in grad school when you do it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.